Yo, what's up, everybody? What's going on? Checking in here, and this is the November 7th, 2021 episode of the Boxing Source Radio Show. I'm your host, James Bell, the leader of the Boxing Source, and you can follow us on social media through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and through YouTube. And be sure to subscribe to this podcast if you haven't done so already. We really appreciate it. We want to get into the discussions here as we know what happened last night with the undisputed super middleweight championship fight taking place between Saul Canelo Alvarez and Sweet Hands Caleb Plant. And I mean, it looked like it was a very good battle there for the time that it did happen until eventually Canelo got the 11th round stoppage victory over Caleb Plant to become the undisputed super middleweight champion. And, for me, it was pretty much a tale of, what was going down and, that it was a pretty good bout for many. A lot of people felt like Caleb Plant did a lot over the course of the fight, and that Canelo was just, waiting for openings there on Caleb Plant before he got himself or scored the knockdown initially in the 11th round, and then ultimately finished off Caleb Plant. For me, I thought it was a good little matchup that I'll be talking about in depth here, over the course of the next 30 minutes to an hour. Want to add in one guest here coming in, checking in is brother Mike Grady. What's going on, man?
How you doing, James? Doing pretty good, man. How you doing?
Oh, I'm all good, man. All good. Watching the fights, man. I guess a lot of people are only like interested in the last bout of that card. We did see a knockout victory in the Kofi bout, but I'm not sure if like a lot of people expected that, but that was a good little show there. About Anthony Burrell, but the event with Canelo Alvarez and Caleb. For me, I think it was Canelo Alvarez looking for one punch for most of the fight.
You mind saying it again? He was looking for one punch.
Yeah, it was looking for one punch.
Yeah. I'll say this. After that performance, I'm glad Canelo got whatever accolades came to him. I question if he pound for pound in my book now after that performance. Because while he has beaten people with that same style, fleet of foot style, and he's getting those people out of there. If you have an individual who has that style, but has decent power to keep him off of him and keep him respectable, Canelo would lose a decision. Somebody who could avoid that and just make him sort of pay with a jab and with a right hand. Caleb Plant was not able to do that. He was not able to make him pay. He didn't throw his right hand a lot of times, and when he did throw it, it didn't deter Caleb Plant. I know somebody was like, once Canelo figures out that you can't hurt him, it's over. And yeah, you could say that was the case. You could also say that Canelo was sort of willing to concede the first half of the fight and then wait till Caleb Plant sort of slowed down and then, like you said, catch him with the big shots. Now, yes, he was throwing the same hook, but the way he did it, Canelo did good in that. Once Caleb Plant slowed down, the adjustment that he made was so Caleb Plant, when he was sort of, I wouldn't even argue that he was winning the rounds because, I mean, obviously there were a couple rounds that he won where Canelo, like the one round where Canelo was on the rope to try to bait him in, You
Yeah.
can't argue that he won that round, or it's less of an argument that he won that round. But other rounds where Caleb Plant, like the first 2 or 3 rounds where Caleb Plant was moving, and then he would sort of deter Canelo from throwing because he would throw the jab and disrupt Canelo's timing or offense by, just hitting his head and then making his head pop back. And then that would essentially stop Canelo from throwing either his right hand or his left because, the body follows the head. What Canelo started doing, so when Caleb Plant attacked him, I saw somebody's video and then they pointed out that Caleb Plant was attacking him when he was on the back foot, and so he would attack him on the back foot and wouldn't let Canelo get to the front foot to put his weight on the front leg to where he could throw the hook or throw the right hand. And
Right.
so Plant would attack him on the back foot, and that would be sort of his timing. Quite naturally, Canelo kind of got that timing, and then he started slipping to the front foot. And so the thing that I noticed when I said in the chat that it was something different. So yes, he was throwing the left hook, but I would argue that like the way he threw it, like the leaping left hook, and how he set it up was different, which is what I was saying in the chat of how he caught him, which was the adjustment that I saw him make. And so he kind of got past the minefield of it wasn't much of a minefield, but got past the minefield of Caleb Plant's jab, and he was on his front foot. And so then at some point he was throwing to the head. He obviously was not landing. Then he switched it up, started throwing to the body. And so when Caleb Plant got tired, you know, all Caleb Plant sort of was doing was keeping his head there as opposed to dipping down or whatever. And so then
Right.
Canelo was contented with when Caleb Plant was on that right hand side, he would throw to the body, and then Plant's head was like stuck on the right side, sort of like up in the air. And so then he did that body shot quite a few times with his attack. And so then if you literally look at that last sequence, he did the same attack. He slipped to the front foot, and then he went to the body on the first one. And I think the body shot might have even landed. I don't know, but you could tell Caleb Plant was tired at this point. And then he
Yeah.
did the same exact move, and then instead of him going to the body, he just did the leaping left hook and, ended up catching him clean on the forehead. And then that was pretty much the shot that did it. Well, he was hurt. Obviously, you could tell he was buzzed. But then when Caleb Plant tried to duck down and then get away from the offense, Canelo was already throwing that right hand to that spot where he thought he was going to be at. He caught him with that uppercut, and then that pretty much did it. I mean, you got to give Caleb Plant credit because he still was trying to get up. Yeah, that might have been the best thing to do to stop the fight, but I think he could have. It'd have been good to see if he would have been able to move and make it out the round. That's. I guess that's all I'm saying. But
Well, I
who
mean,
knows?
I think with that, I think once he had that first knockdown score, that equilibrium was a little bit off there for Caleb Plant, coming off that left hook before the right uppercut. So he was, still trying to do something to get his bearings back, but his footwork wasn't completely there. So it made it a little bit of an easier target for Canelo Alvarez to score more of those power shots. The thing about, what I was saying for Canelo, over the majority of this particular fight, he was still doing the same things as far as like pursuing Caleb Plant and kind of like trying to break down Caleb Plant with the same kind of sequence with the left hook, pretty much like aiming for the left hooks to the body, adding in a couple more right hooks, mixing in a couple jabs. But, for me, it was pretty much like a similar strategy for Canelo Alvarez for the majority of those rounds. And on the flip side with Caleb Plant, it looked like he was, okay with, scoring points, scoring with the jab, trying to get out of the pocket, get out of the line of vision of Canelo Alvarez. And for those first 4 or 5 rounds, he was doing pretty good on that from an offensive standpoint. But, when, the thing got up close, or when, Canelo got up close, that's when he started to score more. And then by the fifth or sixth round, it looked like Canelo was kind of like timing the jabs that Plant was doing because he was starting to move his head a little bit more. In the first few rounds, Canelo just had his high guard up, just had his, two hands up, just trying to do that in order to block the jab. But once you saw Canelo like moving his head, you kind of see the activity for Caleb Plant as far as like throwing the jab kind of like diminish a little bit more because he wasn't looking at a sitting target or something that was right in front of him. Like Canelo was moving around with the head a little bit back and forth because he kind of like seen that this jab was scoring a little bit well, and I think his trainer Eddie Reynoso saw that as well. So he had to make that adjustment in order to be a little bit more successful as far as like getting off his offense while preventing Caleb Plant to score with those jabs there at the beginning. So I think, from that fifth and sixth round, you kind of like seen more of a shift from Canelo Alvarez on there. And with Caleb Plant, he was still, there, still competitive and that type of thing. But for me, like I was saying in the preview for this fight, I wanted to see if Caleb Plant had something, you know what I'm saying, that would make Canelo respect him when it came to power shots. And I never really saw that coming from Caleb Plant. So you saw Canelo Alvarez just keep going forward, keep going forward, keep going forward, because Caleb Plant didn't have any type of shot that really buzzed Canelo Alvarez to where it would change his position or change his strategy to an extent. So that's what I
Yeah,
pretty much saw there.
definitely. And then early, the reason why it changed because maybe with the right fighter, Tyson Fury, Mayweather, people who got real good win, you can do what I'm saying. Man, not Tyson Fury, but Mayweather, and but he was using a lot of energy to sort of stay out of harm's way in those exchanges early. And for the most part, for a good 6, 7 rounds, when he was using his feet to sort of throw the shot and then dodge the dang counter that Canelo threw, and then he would use his feet to sort of get out the way. And it
Yeah,
would be, to me, he would be sort of sometimes out of position or his weight would be wrong. But then the fact that he is pretty dang athletic, he used a lot of energy to get him away or not get caught clean by those exchanges. One thing that this the knockout sequence always makes me go back to is I'm on the sidelines. I've never professionally fought or anything to that sort. So take my commentary with a grain of salt because I'm on the sidelines eating hot dogs and stuff. But these fighters gotta go through like situational training for when you get hurt, which is why one thing that made Mayweather very successful when he actually did get hurt, you can tell he went through situational training and what he needs to do. And even if you never truly get hurt, going through like the motion of what you should follow, so your body just automatically knows what you need to do. If you look at Caleb Plant, once Caleb Plant got hurt, again, it's easy to say. I've been buzzed before. It's it's practice. You gotta make your body do this almost on its own because once you out of it, your body gonna revert to whatever it's used to doing. Which if it's nothing, then you just sitting there like a dead duck or something. But what I'm saying is
right.
when he got clipped, he took so originally he was moving, he tried to do a move to get out the way, but then he took his eye off the target. So grain of salt because I know it ain't that easy once you get hurt and stuff. But if you look at Mayweather, when Mayweather got hurt against most all the people he got hurt against, his eye stayed on the target, which means that him being able to do the move where he wrapped you or scooped your legs or whatever he did, he was able to do that. Caleb Plant literally, which is the reason why he Oh, let me stop this. Cooking
Hmm.
some wings. The reason why he got devastated at the end is because he was not able to see where them big hellacious shots was coming from because he took his eye off the prize. And like it was like you got to go through that sequence to know how you supposed to handle. Like even if you hurt, you need to literally spin somebody around 30, 40 times and then, put a weight vest on their ass or something and then tell
Right.
them, survive. Like literally people need to be doing situational stuff where you are dizzy and you literally falling because spinning around and stuff, and then you gotta survive. You gotta do something, and that means or you put them on them little goggles. You know them goggles that used to make us have like in college and stuff when they be like on the concourse, and you go and look at the goggles like little drinking goggles. Put one of them goggles on, and then make the person survive and make them keep their eye on the target, and just go through that motion. I'm talking too much, but I'm just saying, Caleb Plant as a professional being at the point where he's gonna be fighting somebody like Canelo Alvarez, should have done that type of situational training. Goes for Wilder, goes for anybody else who's in that position.
Yeah, and I think with Plant, even though it seemed like a lot of the stuff that he was doing over the course of those rounds were pretty much working for him. I didn't see like anything where he would change things up in order to try to get more of an advantage over Canelo Alvarez. I think in the second half of the fight, there was one instance where he was, in the on the front foot, and he was able to, get Canelo to the ropes. But once he had Canelo to the ropes, the problem was he didn't really try to, do something where he could have an advantage, try to land a couple power shots, throw combinations while Canelo was in the ropes. I don't know if it was, a point where he probably was, scared that he would get countered or anything like that. But once you have Canelo to the ropes, you got to be able to do or use some type of offense. And I didn't really see that coming from Caleb Plant at that particular point. And I think that at that time he could have, done something in order to shift the fight more towards his favor at that particular point. Even though, at the time watching it live, it kind of seemed like, Canelo was tiring a little bit in that instance. And I just felt like he Plant fought like a very good fight. It was a good tactical fight between the two, but there were like a couple of mistakes on Plant's part that probably cost him the fight, and that one was the glaring instance where I thought that he could have had much of a bigger advantage over Canelo Alvarez, and he just didn't take that opportunity. And you got to do that when you're going up against Canelo Alvarez in the biggest fight of your life up to this particular point by a considerable margin. So I mean, I thought that he was able to use his height and his reach pretty well. Like I said, throwing the jabs, double jabs, triple jabs at times, and he had to like make sure that he could get more a better advantage on Canelo, but just didn't see it. But I think that he attempted to do that at the beginning of the 10th round as well, where he tried to increase his activity, throw about 3 or 4 punch combinations, um, and try to get back at Canelo, but Canelo just wouldn't allow Plant to stay consistent with that 3 or 4 punch combination without Canelo responding with counter shots of his own. And that was just the thing that kind of like led to what happened in the 11th round, where, Caleb Plant just got backed into the ropes and was pretty much like stuck in the ropes and just couldn't get away from, those that left hook, right uppercut combination, you know. So that's about it, you know.
So what you say against what I'm saying here, where I say Canelo Alvarez in this fight, like other fights where he fight this type of style, we see just how limited he is. Not limited in the fact that the man is special, that the style that he does choose to fight in, or the style that he has perfected to fight in, that he's able to fight in, he can literally walk with his hands down, throw body shots, throw hooks, and throw whatever, get you in the corner, and then land one of those big shots and get you out of there. But in terms of skill, in terms of um, doing something to actually, don't get me wrong, he did
Hmm.
do an X's and O's thing where he sort of got on his front foot and then he got away from Plant's jab, which means that he was able to then throw his left hook and stuff like that instead of getting caught in between where Caleb was sort of like peppering him, where he was trying to come to the front foot and Caleb would like pepper, which means he would get him off balance. So Canelo did make a tactical adjustment of like shooting to his front foot, and then he was able to throw like that leaping hook and stuff. But what I'm saying is, other than that one adjustment, which is a good adjustment, there was nothing special that he did to sort of superly outmatch the fighter with better. I can't. We can't say skill because I would say Caleb. I would say what's the name is more skill. Um, what I'm saying is he showed me that he was limited, and the right fighter he would lose on points to a fighter who wasn't feather fisted.
Mm.
So to me, I don't think Terrence Crawford deserves it pound for pound. I still say Errol Spence. I mean, yeah, you can put Canelo number two, but like what I'm
Mm.
seeing from Canelo, if he wasn't getting match made and fighting these guys who whatever, if there was an Andre Ward S type guy, Canelo would be in trouble. You know, who could box and
Well,
move and go
right.
ahead.
And I mean, I kind of like got comments similar to that yesterday in reference to Canelo Alvarez. Like when you talk about pound for pound, in that they kind of like said that even with what Canelo has been able to do against some of these opponents like the Caleb Plants, the Billy Joe Saunders, the Callum Smiths, and that type of thing, like you haven't like necessarily seen like a quote unquote flawless performance from Canelo Alvarez. In that, he kind of like fires on all cylinders against like a high level opponent. Like it's not like somebody like an Abney Yildirim, but it's like a higher level opponent, whether it was at 160 pounds or 168 or even at 154. You know, so the thing about it is like we haven't like quite seen that type of performance from Canelo Alvarez because I just think that he has that one style where he just, comes forward, tries to see what his opponent does, and uses that counter game in order to, methodically break down and then eventually beat his opponent. It's almost like how Miguel Cotto had his fighting style for a long time at 147 and then eventually 154 pounds to 160, before, he ended his career. But, I kind of like see that same element coming from Canelo Alvarez against a lot of his opponents where he's kind of like saying, I'm going to come forward. I'm going to see what you could do on offense. And if you can't really hurt me, I'm going to just continue to come forward and break you down, start from the body first, and then work up top. And that's what he really did here against Canelo Alvarez. Um, Now, I see that, like, there's some comments here in reference to this fight that they felt like, Caleb Plant was winning the fight up to this particular point, whether it was the 10th or the 11th round. What do you think about that?
That Caleb Plant was winning.
Yeah.
Nah, I wasn't scoring the fight, you know, because for whatever reason I wasn't scoring the fight. I debated on going back to look at it again to actually score it, but
Hmm.
my opinion, the peppering that Caleb Plant was doing, it yes, you could have said that you could make a point to say in a boxing match, maybe he landed. I just don't know if the shots were more effective because it had something to do with his balance, but that's the reason why he was not able to throw his right hand or is not able to throw his right hand like that because he need to work on his balance. I'm a regular person, so I need to work on my balance too. At the same time, yeah, I can't say that he was winning. Maybe if you'd have said in the first 6 rounds, you could have made an argument that it was close. But then past round 6, the thing is, Canelo Alvarez is able to succumb or make guys succumb to him by literally walking to them with his hands down, plodding toward them, and not having to obviously waiting till round 6 or later because their endurance goes. So he has better endurance, whether it's Mexican beast, wherever it is, he got better endurance than people. And so he literally waits till round 6 or whatever, and then his shots, the heavy shots that he throw to the body or to the head, finally land. If that was not the case and somebody had just as much wind and was able to jab and stuff, Canelo wouldn't win these fights. Do I think Plant was winning by round 11? No. You could make that argument from round 6 or so when he was like tagging him. But once what's the name made that adjustment, Canelo made that adjustment. Yeah, it's Plant was fading. You could tell he was fading. The pressure was immense in terms of just the mental pressure, and literally all Canelo was doing was walking toward him. Caleb Plant pissed me off so bad because Canelo Alvarez is walking toward this man with his hands down, and Plant don't even throw a right hand. It ain't that easy. I get it. It's not easy, but golly, man, hit this dude with a right hand with everything you got. Like he literally was walking to him with his hands down, and that's what Canelo has to do because he's slow and got slow feet and stuff. But nah, I don't know about him winning.
Well, I mean, the lead right hand was available for Caleb Plant
Exactly.
that he didn't utilize. But I also thought for a good few rounds in the middle rounds, the lead right hand was available for Canelo Alvarez, and he didn't throw it, at least up top. Because even with the stance that Caleb Plant had, you could pretty much try to come in with the lead right hand instead of
Instead of
trying to
trying to
shoot
shoot
that
that
left
left
hook to
hook.
the body.
Yeah, he waited and set it up nicely. Waited to the end and waited till Plant was tired and sort of had the muscle memory of settling for the body shot. Because literally, if you look at that last sequence and the last 2 sequences, Caleb Plant didn't get his head off that spot. Like he ducked down to the right and then like had his hand up, like like the shoulder roll type position,
Hmm.
the Philly shell or whatever position. But then normally he would change levels, which would make Canelo miss him on the shot that he threw. But then toward round 8, 9, 10, toward them later rounds, he was tired, so he just stayed there. That was his downfall.
Yep, that was that was pretty much the thing that kind of like took Plant um off the serious contention for him to kind of like beat Canelo Alvarez at that point because I just felt like he didn't do enough when it came to power shots in order to be successful against Canelo Alvarez. It was almost like he was reluctant to receive the counter shot from Canelo Alvarez and try to, either try to engage or try to do something where he could do a 3 or 4 or 5 punch combination and then get out of it. He was able to do it at the end of, one round, whether it was like, I think it was like the end of the ninth, but he only ended up landing that one right hand which kind of like disturbed Canelo a little bit. But I thought I would see more of that coming from Caleb Plant. Like he had the movement and he had the hand speed to kind of like really give someone like Canelo problems, but it just seemed like he almost I wouldn't necessarily say allowed himself to get kind of like cornered in by Canelo, but he just like couldn't keep that pace over the course of 10 or 11 rounds where he could throw 2 or 3, get out of the pocket, and just keep the same thing, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Um, while Canelo started to get a little bit more successful with the power shots after about round 7, once he started to move his head a little bit to, get away from the jab of Caleb-Plant and then just score with the left hooks and then a couple of right hands upstairs did score, but other than that, I really didn't see right hands up top from Canelo Alvarez. It was majority work going to the body of Caleb-Plant.
Yeah, he couldn't keep that pace.
So I mean, I felt like Plant just had to do something where opportunities, if they were open for him, he would have had to like completely take advantage of those, and it just didn't look like he did do that. Now, up into that 11th round, the judges had like 10 rounds scored, and one judge had it like 8 rounds to 2 for Canelo. One judge had it 7 rounds to 3 for Canelo, and one had it 6 rounds to 4 for Canelo. So, even going into the 11th round, you pretty much had like two judges that had it pretty much in the bag for Canelo Alvarez because he had already won 7 rounds or more on 2 scorecards. So if it did go to full 12, you would have at least saw, majority decision win for Canelo Alvarez. Unless, Caleb-Plant had won the 11th and the 12th round for, one scorecard to be even. So, yeah, I think, with that performance that Caleb-Plant had, yeah, he was able to score well with the jabs, but I just didn't really see that much power shots coming from him to really kind of shift a good amount of those rounds in his favor. And when I was watching it live, didn't really get into the commentary or anything like that. Like I felt like Caleb-Plant had about a couple of those early rounds, but after about round 5 or 6, he's seen more and more of those rounds going towards Canelo because he was getting more successful with the body work and also the power shots upstairs. But you know, like I said, overall it was a fairly good tactical fight, but there were just some opportunities from Caleb-Plant that he wasn't able to take advantage of, and sometimes those are the breaks there in that instance. So now Canelo Alvarez is the undisputed super middleweight champion. He's gonna go into next year, seeing what his next opponent is going to be. He's aiming towards having his next fight Cinco de Mayo weekend. Now I kind of aimed it towards him going against David Benavidez. But on as shown here in the live chat in the thing with Brian Custer on his podcast, Canelo Alvarez said that his plan is to fight Jamal Charlo before David Benavidez. And of course, Jamal Charlo is a WBC middleweight champion, but definitely has the frame to come up to 168. But we have not seen what Charlo would be able to do at 168 as of yet. So I just feel like that's an interesting, comment from Canelo Alvarez, seeing that would be his preferred next opponent coming up outside of Benavidez. For me, I think Benavidez is probably his, biggest challenge at 168. Even though with Benavidez, he does have a lot of activity with his hands. It's just that you got to see how he's going to be able to, move around the ring because he doesn't really move around the ring a lot. He just sits there, stands in the pocket, and throws hands. He's almost like when it comes to throwing punches, it's almost like Andy Ruiz when he just stands there and just throws punches. That's what I get there from David Benavidez. But with Jamal Charlo, I think some people were kind of skeptical about Jamal Charlo. We did have his key win or his big win over Sergey Derevyanchenko last year. But after that particular fight, he had his bout with Juan Montiel, which they thought that he was going to, kind of take Montiel out and get a stoppage victory. But it ended up going the full 12 rounds, even though he was scoring a lot with power shots on Montiel. So if you see, Jamal Charlo coming up to 168 to face Canelo Alvarez first, that would be interesting to see like how he would be able to adjust to the 168-pound limit first and going up against a guy with the caliber of Canelo Alvarez. But we kind of like see with Alvarez, he's looking really, really slow when it comes to his feet. So if you're able to, just be very quick on your feet and move around a lot, you'll be able to frustrate Canelo. And I think there were times in this Plant fight where Canelo seemed a bit frustrated because Plant wasn't right there in front of him and he had to reset a lot, especially early in the fight. But with Jamal Charlo, I got to see if he's going to be able to do that here against Canelo Alvarez, or if he's going to try to go the power route to try to see if he could have Canelo respect him with the offensive repertoire that he has. So, Mike, what do you think about those potential matchups for Canelo Alvarez, either Charlo or Benavidez?
I think both will have trouble because, like you said, Benavidez just sit there and throw shots. Now, it's a good thing that he throw a bunch of shots, and he had that dude head looking like a bobble doll, but I don't think he get his head off the line very well, Benavidez, which means that same hook that knocked out what's his name is probably gonna hit him, and for the same matter of fact, Charlo as well, because they both don't get their head off the line very well. And so you saw a fighter yesterday that does get his head, for the most part, gets his head off the line. He goes to the same spot, but I don't think Charlo nor Benavidez get their head off the line well enough to where Canelo, when they do sit there and they are engaging the shots that come back, might actually land or be very close to hitting them in the neck or everything else. They like, unless they practice that and they like game plan for like actually moving and making that inch move that they need to make so that the shot can go over their head or wherever else. I think it's gonna be tough for either fighter on defense. In terms of offense, Benavidez, obviously the amount of shots and how he's able to throw could be helpful, and it could be a hindrance to him because throwing all them shots, if Canelo eat them shots and they don't hurt him, you will get countered if you throw 4 shots. And then again, you throw 4 shots. Let's say you don't hurt Canelo and he throw that hook coming, return fire, and your head's still in that same spot. It get back to my thought of, can you take those shots from Canelo? With Charlo on offense, I think Charlo has the tools in terms of quickness, um, in terms of when he throws shots. Let's say if he throw his right hand, his head get to the left side of the line. So he does do that. Like he does when he throws shots, he don't throw his shots and his head be like sitting right there on the line. So I think Charlo would be okay in that respect. I just don't know how he would do on the defensive end. I mean, it might be good fights. I mean, either one of those fights will be better than the fight that we saw last night. And at least it should be exciting. Both of those fights should be exciting while they last.
Yeah, I mean, I think that both Charlo and Benavidez have the potential to like kind of buzz Canelo with a power shot. Either that or try to get him with a good jab or a power jab. Thing with Jamal Charlo is he has like a good power jab that he steps forward with, and with him being kind of like consistent with that, that could be an issue for Canelo coming into the second half of the fight. Whenever they fight, so there's that, and then like I said with Benavidez, it's more of like his overall activity with his hands that could give Canelo some issues. The only thing with him is he'll still be stationary right there for Canelo if Canelo wants to land like a good counter shot either to the body or up top. And a lot of these shots that Canelo throws now, especially at 168 pounds, they're like very, very forceful. And so he's gonna Benavidez in that instance, he's going to have to like deal with that if he potentially faces Canelo Alvarez sometime next year. Now there was like an outside chance of a fight between Canelo Alvarez and Demetrius Andrade, but that that really isn't going to happen. I feel like that ship has sailed once, Canelo moved up to 168 pounds. I mean, the potential was there at 154, didn't happen. It could have happened at 160, potentially for the undisputed middleweight champion, didn't happen. So Canelo moving up to 168 pounds, that pretty much like knocks off any possibility that he'll fight Demetrius Andrade. Plus, my thing with Demetrius Andrade is he'll most likely stay at 160 pounds and kind of like get this fight that he has coming up over in New Hampshire, gets that out of the way. And then once he gets that out of the way, then he could probably, get the winner of Gennady Golovkin there in Ryota Murata for another unification of there at middleweight. But for like a fight between Andrade and Canelo Alvarez, yeah, I really don't see that happening. That's just like a long shot there coming in 2022. And with Canelo kind of like saying that he's fighting in May, that's probably going to be like him fighting twice. It's going to be May for Cinco de Mayo, and then for Mexican Independence Weekend next year, since he wasn't able to fight in Mexican Independence Weekend this year because of the delay between him and Plant having a fight go down. So that's kind of like what I see off that. But for Plant, he was kind of like I said, he was kind of competitive, especially in the first half of the fight, but just had a couple of issues there in the tail end of the fight. Ended up getting knocked out. And loses his IBF title. So now it's pretty much a matter of what's going to be next for Canelo-Plant, because he'll likely try to get back into the title picture, um, and kind of like see like if he could get himself right back into it. I still feel like a, a fight between Canelo-Plant and David Benavidez would be a really, really good fight. Um, whenever that could happen, I just don't know if that will end up happening, you know, before Benavidez and Canelo step into the ring. That would be the major issue there at that particular point. And given the lack of depth in the 168-pound division, Caleb Plant would kind of like do here at this particular point. I mean, maybe he'll end up facing Anthony Durrell, as a fight, after Plant's first professional loss. But Durrell is in the mind state of if he's not fighting for a world title, then he really doesn't want to fight. Even though he scored this big victory in the co-feature bout, he just feels like if it ain't a big fight for him, then he's not going to really be interested. Want to get in additional commentary for the reactions after the fight from our guy, Philly's own YSM Sports Media, checking in. What's happening?
What's good?
Oh, good here, man. What you think about what happened with Canelo and Plant?
All right. Well, it showed that first Canelo still struggles with that style, and that's the style that's going to be most effective in a fight with him. Secondly, it showed deficiencies in Caleb Plant. One of the things that that he didn't do that I've seen Canelo have trouble with, obviously with Floyd and Arislani Lara, is he didn't counterpunch effectively when making Canelo miss.
Mm-hmm.
And that Canelo just felt like nothing was coming back at him that was going to make him worry. So he could just, peek and prod all night
Yeah.
until he finally caught up to him and landed, the really big left hook and then the uppercut that sealed the deal.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, my thing was he was just trying to get Plant really hurt with the left hook for the majority of the night, and didn't really mix up his attack that much over the course of those rounds. And then he just pretty much like struck gold in that 11th round with the left hook, and then caught him with the uppercut, almost similar to how we caught Billy Joe Saunders with the uppercut, because it looked like Plant like dipped down just like Saunders dipped down, with that right uppercut. But the thing was, with this particular fight, Canelo was able to land the left hook up top first, and that forced, Plant to dip down from a defensive standpoint, and then he ended up getting caught with the uppercut that kind of like sent him pretty much on his way down.
Where Caleb messed up at is first off, it's hard to do the Philly shell when you're that much taller than the opposition.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Next, he didn't sit down on his shots. Like even when fighting that particular style, there has to come a point in time in each round where you have to give the opponent something to think about, and he really didn't do that.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you why I think that is.
Go ahead.
If you look at the way that Caleb Plant counters, like when he actually did counter, where he threw the shot where he was in that, on the right side on his back foot in the Philly shell, Canelo threw whatever shot and he countered, and the shot looked like it was like T-Rex arms or something. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
The fact is that he don't transfer his weight when he do that. Like he stays on his back foot, and then when he throw the shot, it's like his weight is on the back foot, but then he try to throw his upper body to go against what the rest of his body is doing. He literally just got to turn his whole body, which is why he ain't, getting anything to them shots, because he's on his back foot and he just pretty much throwing an arm punch at that point, which is why Canelo was like, this what you throwing at me? Oh, it's over.
Hey, Mike, you know what's crazy, bro?
What's that?
I remember showing a friend of mine, he's probably the best boxing mind I've ever met. And he's responsible for actually getting me into boxing. I remember telling him about Caleb Plant. It's like a couple years back. And do you know he mentioned that same thing? As soon as he seen him, he's like, I don't like him. And I'm like, why? Like, he's slick, all that. And he talked about when he throws his punches. He said he doesn't know how to throw his punches. He said he throws his punches like a kickboxer. If you notice kickboxers, with the way they stand, like if you watch Chris Algieri, the way they don't put their body into the shots because they had to worry about like a kick coming back. So their defense, they have to be like centered because of the defense.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah, I mean that's like kind of crazy there, and like I was saying, like if you put more emphasis on your back foot and kind of like worried about moving yourself out of the way, you're not getting really much coming off of your jab, because it's like you're reaching out with your jab going backwards, and you don't have anything stationary to like kind of put everything into that jab. So he's like kind of like using it as a defensive mechanism, but he's working well as far as like landing. So it's good offense, but it's not good enough to like where it could really do some serious damage there towards his opponent.
Well, I was saying his right hand. Like, I think he would be okay if he threw the jab on his back foot. Like he could be okay. He could be totally okay doing that. I'm saying you bold danger to yourself if you on your back foot and you throw on your right hand, the right hand that has to cross the line and extend to get to your opponent. and his whole body is on the backside, but then he trying to throw the shot. It's like he just there, like in this no man's land, and uh, no power on that one.
Yeah, I mean he kind of like gets himself in a bad position with that, but also if you know like you were saying with this defensive thing with this Philly shell, he really can't get off his right hand with good enough emphasis because it's really short, and he shortens that right hand. So he comes in the Philly shell stance with his right hand above his left, but he can't really turn his waist or have the torque in order to get everything off of his right hand, especially in a close distance like that. So even if he does land the right hand, it's pretty much like an arm punch, on his opponent instead of having something that could really, really do some damage on Canelo or whoever he's facing. So
Hey Jay, see the thing is, right? First off, the Philly shell already limits you offensively. And
yeah.
if you don't have a good counter, right, you're toast. You're as good. Like you're taking pictures.
Hmm.
It's just defensive. The dude has
Posing.
no worry about anything coming back.
Yeah. You just posing here, posing there, posing here, posing there. And if you don't necessarily have, the distance well enough to kind of like shoot that right hand to where you could fully extend it, then yeah, you're not going to really get the full effect that you need off that right hand from a counter. So, yeah, I think that with Caleb-Plant, there were times when he kind of like was in the Philly shell on the ropes, and Canelo was, throwing a good amount of shots. And yeah, Caleb-Plant was dodging a good amount of them, but he couldn't really like shoot back. He would have to move himself out of that line of vision of Canelo in order to get himself ready and just have him in a stance to where he could get off his offense. But when he's in that Philly shell up close, he just doesn't know how to like really shoot the right hand or try to come up with the uppercut or try to turn his opponent and then get in with the left hook or something like that.
I watched some highlights of James Toney early today, and James Toney's special. Let me just say that. At the same time, yeah, obviously it's Caleb Plant fault, but shit, that's on his coaches. Whoever taught him from a young pup up until now, hitting them mitts and stuff. Like you setting your fight up for failure. Which could the same thing could be said for Deontay Wilder. At the highest levels, he could get away with it fighting, B, C minus fighters and stuff. But then when you fight a B plus fighter in Canelo, you know, you can't get away with that stuff. You gotta know them fundamentals, which is why Tyson Fury probably gonna beat most of these heavyweights because he can move too, but you get what
Yeah,
I'm
he
saying.
can move, but you see that he puts in work with a lot of guys there when it comes to sparring and things like that, and kind of like develops himself and makes adjustments over the course of time in camp. And yeah, I really didn't see that much coming from Caleb Plant leading into this particular bout, even though he was talking to guys like maybe what it was like Andre Ward and other guys to kind of like get him prepared or whatnot. But like he kind of like felt like he wanted to go forward with this plan of trying to jab off the back foot, score points, score points, score points. But it's only a matter of time before after scoring all those points where you have to step it up and say, hey, I need to hurt this guy. And he didn't really have that instance where he got to a point where he's like, okay, now is the time for me to try to hurt this guy. And he's supposed to be, the guy, the bigger guy, and all that type of, whatever's. But it just didn't seem like he had that, snap into, his mind that yeah, I gotta hurt this guy to really
Hey,
show him something.
hey Jay, I got a question for you, right?
Yo,
So there was talk about Ward versus Canelo. Canelo fans, oh, he'll stop Ward. And there was a back and forth, right? From what you saw last night, even with the layoff, who would you favor?
I would favor Ward because I think even with both of these guys having knee issues, I think Ward would be able to deal with it better than Canelo. So yeah, I would pick Ward. Only thing with Ward is he's retired and he's like retired because he had the insurance on his knee. So if he came out of retirement, then he doesn't get that money
Yeah, he got
from.
the Lords of London. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah,
Yo,
man.
what's crazy is any objective boxing fan, if you watch that fight and you saw the success that Caleb had, and you think in your mind of Andre Ward, I don't think any neutral boxing fan would think that Canelo could beat him. It's just a bad style.
Yeah, it's bad style, and he also got to deal with size too. I mean, like is if Canelo would go up to like a 172 or 173 going up against the Andre Ward that's probably naturally bigger than him. Yeah, nah, and Ward to me is a lot more calculated in his offense, than I think more calculated in his offense than Canelo is, but definitely more calculated in his offense than anybody that Canelo has faced, outside of Mayweather. So, um, yeah, I think it would be a definite. I think it would be a definite advantage for Andre Ward. If they had potentially fought. I just think that fight, that ship sailed 3 years ago. If anything, it would have been 3 years ago or something like that. If that fight could have happened, but
And then
now,
to
go
add,
ahead.
oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
To add, like Caleb-Plant, the way that I saw Canelo Alvarez respond, he didn't respond like when fighters' faces like just turn completely different. But when Caleb-Plant was going to the body, you saw a difference in action in Canelo. One thing that we can say about an Andre Ward is that in his older age, I'm in firm belief that he would go to the body on Canelo, and you would see a different, all that being able to do the stuff and throwing them big shots toward the end. Yeah, he probably would do that, but what I'm saying is the body shots would take a lot out of Canelo, and you would see a different mental fighter,
Yo,
different mentality in the fighter.
Mike, he would make him miss. He would confuse him, frustrate him on the outside, and then when those times where you got to sit down and make Canelo respect you, he would maul him. That's what you would see. Movement on the outside, then a mauling. Because he's the naturally bigger dude and he can fight real well, like in the pocket. Like he grabs, he clenches real well,
Mm-hmm.
and he's dirty. So like and he's the bigger man. It's gonna that's a full balanced breakfast to deal with.
The
Yeah.
only thing I would say though is objects in motion stay in motion. Objects at rest stay at rest. That'll be, he would have to fight another fight just to see if he even still got it. And then, like could he fight 12 rounds? Because Andre Ward 4 years ago, yes, would have the endurance advantage. Would Canelo have the endurance advantage now, which would bode well for Canelo?
Yeah, man, it possibly would, but like like you said there, Jamil, Ward would force you to fight his fight. You know, um, like he would not allow Canelo to, try to go at his pace. Like say, like I said here in the live chat, like he would not let Canelo fight at Canelo's, pace. That he would try to, nullify that by if he needs to, he would hold, he would counter, he would, move, out of place and kind of like make you pay in the process. So that's the thing about it, is that Ward with his thing is, if you make a mistake, he'll make you pay. He'll make you pay pretty much like every time. So I think Canelo would definitely have to like kind of like deal with that. And it's not something to where, you know, he'll make you pay, and he's gonna send a message with that, in that, you know, he'll adjust it to the point where your strategy, if it doesn't work, you're gonna have to come up with a plan B, and come up with a plan B pretty quickly. Because if you don't, then all of a sudden Ward will have a large lead over you in the tail end of the fight, and then you're gonna have to try to get after him to try to score a knockout, and by then it's too late. So yeah, with Canelo Alvarez, it's just you know, with the way that his mobility is at this particular point of his career, it's like you gotta be able to, you know, have it to where either you send a message with every shot that you throw, or you have great movement out there. And I think Ward has, you know, those elements of both aspects, where he could move very well in the ring, and he could, you know, throw shots that could really hurt his opponent. You know, so that's where Ward kind of like gets that advantage. You know what I mean? Um, yeah, with you on Jamil, I kind of like said like what's potentially next for Canelo, either like a Benavidez who, you know, has his fight coming up next week, or it could be Jamal Charlo moving up to 168 to fight Canelo. Oh, I think he like did check out there, so maybe he could get back on there a little bit more. Live chat, yeah, it said like Canelo doesn't utilize that jab well enough to get inside. No, he doesn't. You know, he pretty much, like I said, he kind of like tries to, you know, go in there with his head, move his head, have a high guard, and try to get to the inside. Now you got to be able to jab with Ward, in order to, you know, do some damage to him before even getting to the inside, because you can't you can't just sit there waiting for Ward to do something, you know, because he'll, you know, get off his offense, and he'll definitely get out of the pocket, or he'll hold, you know, like it was said earlier. So yeah, that's the thing where I kind of like feel like Ward he would have a good advantage over Canelo, because he knows how to get off his offense in multiple ways and prevent you from getting your offense going. So that's the thing there with Canelo Alvarez. Um, I know that we had like you know, a few other fights there that was part of this card. Elvis Rodriguez had scored his you know, victory, KO victory over Juan Romero. It was kind of like interesting because this was like his first fight not with Top Rank, and it was his first fight since his long loss, where he lost you know, majority decision to Kenneth Sims about 6 months ago. So he was able to, you know, score a KO victory over an undefeated opponent. And then also, like I was saying, you had Anthony Durrell score a fourth round TKO victory over Marcos Hernandez. You also had Ray Vargas returning there to fight Leonardo Baez, and that fight was a unanimous decision by Ray Vargas, who was supposed to be there at featherweight 126 and was slated to be the mandatory challenger, but due to, you know, him being injured, that kind of like takes away his mandatory spot, and so now you have a WBC champion out there that hasn't, you know, had his mandatory defense since February of last year. So that kind of like is, you know, what that situation is there at featherweight. But that kind of like, you know, goes over, you know, most of what went down there in Las Vegas. And so, you know, we kind of like look ahead to what's going on for the 13th. You know, you know, you got the thing there with Keith Galahad defending his featherweight title against Kiko Martinez. I don't know why, but it seems like Kiko Martinez always gets himself in the in the title shots. You also have Jaime Munguia against Gabe Rosado on Saturday. that's one where I kind of like say you gotta watch out, for Gabe Rosado. I know people think that McGee is a heavy favorite, but he still got to be able to watch out for Gabe Rosado because Rosado could have an instance where he'll be able to catch McGee with a good shot, like he did with Beck the Bully, and end up scoring a win there over Jaime McGee and hand him his first loss. So he definitely has to watch out for that. And that's kind of like what I'm seeing here coming out of this slate so far. I know that you got, like I said, David Benavidez. He's going up against Kyron Davis since Jose Escalagui is out for testing positive for an illegal substance. So now it's Kyron Davis who had faced Anthony Durrell to a draw last year, but had like another win after that. So that's kind of like what's coming up before we have that big fight between Terrence Crawford and Sean Porter, which I'm definitely looking forward to. Should be in attendance for that particular bout. So that's definitely one that fight fans will look forward to. Out there. I kind of like think that that's going to be the one where we kind of see what's going to happen with Terrence Crawford there in the welterweight division. It's going to be his toughest test, by a long shot, and so I think that Sean Porter is definitely going to be prepared for this fight, regardless of him having his appearances with the commentary and the thing with his podcast and stuff like that. He's definitely going to be ready for a fight of this magnitude against Terrence Crawford. But going back to some little instances that happened over in Las Vegas, there was a little bit of an incident in the stands there for Canelo-Plant involving a few fighters. One of them I mentioned, who is Jamal Charlo, and he and his brother Jamel Charlo got into a little bit of a shoving altercation with former unified super welterweight champion Jarrett Hurd, and that kind of like was the one of the other topics of conversation coming out of last night was that Jarrett Hurd really wasn't kind of like phased by either one of those guys, even though like the Charlos kind of like have that type of, hothead attitude or whatever it is that like Jarrett Hurd was like, he wasn't really like, that scared or, that bothered by either one of them. And that they got into a, good little argument and then ended up, shoving each other before, people stepped forward, to kind of like, separate the two parties. But for me, I think that something like that should kind of like lead to something, because right now, whether Jarrett Hurd is going to be going back down to 154 or going to 160 pounds, he should be fighting one of those Charlo brothers. He hasn't faced either one of them, over the course of his career, and I think it's got to be around that time where he's there and available to face one of those guys. Even though I said Charlo may end up moving up to 168, a fight between Jamal Charlo and Jarrett Hurd, that would be a pretty good matchup. But if it was Jamal Charlo versus Jarrett Hurd, then it would be something that was kind of like long awaited that could have happened before, Jamal Charlo lost to Tony Harrison in that first fight, and Jarrett Hurd lost to Julian J. Rock Williams over in Virginia for those unified titles that Jarrett Hurd had. So that could lead to some little buzz for a fight in the near future between Hurd and one of those guys. But outside of that, man, that's kind of like a lot of what I needed to talk about as far as like live action. I know that You had the announcement of Devin Haney defending his WBC lightweight title against Jojo Diaz. They finally made it official. So you're gonna have Devin Haney making, I think it will count as a mandatory defense there for Devin Haney going up against Jojo Diaz. So that's going to be coming up pretty soon as well. That'll be, in December. So you got a lot of action in the lightweight division coming up in December, with the thing with Tank Davis. You're going to have Devin Haney, even in the end of November, of course, with Teofimo Lopez, defending against his, his IBF mandatory and George Kambosos. And you do have, of course, Lomachenko going against Richard Comey as well. So the lightweight division is going to be, very, very active there in the tail end of this year. So that's a lot of stuff that's going on in reference to that particular weight class. So a lot of action that's going on out and about here to kind of like close this year out. A lot of fights to kind of like look forward to or whatever it is, and things like that. So that's kind of like how I'm seeing what's in the future here in the sport of boxing. Mike, is there like any fights or things that you're kind of like looking for before the end of this year?
Definitely the Sean Porter Terrence Crawford fight. It'd be interesting to see how real Terrence Crawford is. Yeah, Canelo ain't pound for pound after that performance. I said it so Matt can hear me say it, but maybe he'll come on, maybe not. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see if Terrence Crawford wants to make a real claim at that, because his resume does not bode him to be in the top two at least. Probably not even top three if we look at the totality of fighters. But definitely that fight. Who else? I think Anthony Durrell did the right thing in his fight where he fought a contender fighter. I think he
Mm-hmm.
had the right attitude to be like, this dude doesn't belong in the ring with me. Let me get him out here. Let me go out here
Get my
and
left.
take his head out. I think that was a good idea because, he did what he's supposed to do. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I get what his wife's saying, but just because you beat a contender fighter don't mean that you if you fought Benavidez again, he probably wouldn't be close to knocking you out again.
Word.
So
Well, looks like you asked and you shall receive. I guess you spoke it, you believed it, and now you shall receive it. Coming up right here, you have, coming from the Boogie Down Bronx, the voice of MVO himself. Yes, he is the former president of the Deontay Wilder fan club. You know him, I know him, everybody knows him. The big man himself, Mr. Matthew Brown. What's going on, man?
Hey, what's going on, JR? What's going on, Mike Grady?
now what's going on, Matt?
Yeah, I'm actually on a date right now, but I had to sneak in the bathroom real quick. I needed to get in on this real quick, man.
Tell her I said hey. Tell her I said hey, Matt. Tell you that I said,
But real quick, I heard you talking about the lightweight division, JR, and what's upcoming for the lightweight division. I think the way you described it was perfectly. We have all these great matchups coming up, so I just hope the fans appreciate it. We know the media never will, but I hope the fans appreciate what they're seeing. Like literally everybody in the top 10 is pairing off
Yep.
in the lightweight division. And to me, this is basically like a mini tournament for lightweight supremacy. We all know they say Tiafimo is the guy at lightweight, but to me, it sounds like he's chasing Tank, and everybody's chasing Tank because Tank is the draw. Tank is the cash cow. Tank is the guy that everybody, wants that fight. So to me, he's the guy at 135 that the people really care about. I found it interesting. Teofimo Sr. was making a lot of comments about Floyd yesterday. Honestly, I think he's trying to talk his way out of a tank fight, not into a tank fight the way that he's talking. Because he was talking real crazy about Floyd. And we do also remember that Floyd doesn't respect Teofimo's WBA belt. I remember he talked about it before Tank's fight against Barrios, when he was talking about the proliferation of all these belts and these super champions and super duper champions and super duper duper champions. So I do wonder if Teofimo, maybe he's not confident he's going to get the fight, or maybe he doesn't really want the fight. So they're just talking shit. So it'll throw people off the scent and make people think, oh, it's Tank that's hiding from him or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's a whole bunch of PR coming from Teofimo Lopez's camp because, I mean, you seen like a couple weeks earlier, they were talking, mad greasy to Devin Haney. So it goes from Devin Haney now to Tank Davis. And, it's pretty much going to end up being like he might not face, either one of those guys. That he's pretty much content on seeing if he could get this mandatory defense out of the way, and then see if either he they end up getting him in there against Lomachenko again, or, and this is kind of like a semi-long shot, if they get him in there at 140 pounds against Josh Taylor. But depends on what happens on November 20th. He might not get Josh Taylor in 2022. So right now, it looks like Teofimo Lopez is kind of like in a really sticky situation because he'll have this fight coming up that should have happened almost 5 months ago. And then after that, from a business perspective, who knows
But
what
you know
his
why
next direction is.
he's in a sticky situation, JR? It's because everybody knows he doesn't want to fight Haney. Realistically, him and Haney fights a week apart. If they both
Yeah.
win, that's the logical matchup for the real undisputed lightweight belt. But
hmm
everyone knows he doesn't want that fight. And it's funny to me that he's the big mouth. His father's the big mouth. Oh, we'll do this, we'll do that. But we all acknowledge he doesn't want that fight because we're worried about what's going to happen if Porter beats Bud. Will he get the Taylor fight? Or if Bud beats Porter, does that mean Taylor's going to move up after he fights Catterall? And Teofimo's basically in no man's land, and it's of his own doing because he erroneously dismisses Devin Haney as a worthy challenger when Devin Haney is, in fact, the real WBC champion.
Yeah, I mean, there's that, and then also, I'm still not convinced that he's really there to like kind of like get himself to make weight for his fight against George Kambosos. I think he still has issues with that, and that maybe he'll end up making weight against George Kambosos come the weigh-in, but it might be a little bit troubling to try to like get down there. I'm like he's already pretty much like cut everything that he could cut, so. I don't see if he's like anywhere overweight now. I don't see where he could like kind of like shed off extra weight, So it's definitely a bad situation. Well, could end up being a bad situation there for Teofimo Lopez, but all this activity that's going down in the lightweight division, they're pretty much within weeks of each other. Like you said, man, Teofimo, Kambosos. Then the next week, Haney versus JoJo, and then that following week you got Lomachenko versus Comey, and also, of course, Tank Davis versus Isaac Cruz. And people even like if they check like the rankings for lightweight, if you go to like transnational boxing rankings board or Ring Magazine, that's pretty much 8 of the top 10 fighters in the lightweight division, as you mentioned. So that is definitely like a real good tournament to see where you could end up having a clear cut number one there in the lightweight division, because they would be able to have the opportunity to fight each other. But we got to see if that actually does happen going into 2022. You could have these fights happening now within the top 10, but will that mean the winners of those fights are ended up fighting each other in the following year? Who knows?
I think it depends on who wins these matchups. And we also have to remember that there's another top 10 guy at 135 that's making his way back from injury, and that's Ryan Garcia. He is the wild card because, other than Tank, he's the other guy that's the big draw in the division. So, who is he going to fight when he comes back? Is he going to fight the winner of Haney versus Diaz? Doubtful. Is he going to try to go straight into a Tank fight? He's been saying that he wants the Tank fight, so we'll see. Is he going to be fight Rolly? If Rolly beats his whatever the fuck is going on with him, So to me, there's a lot of moving parts with the 135-pound division, and it's so ironic that it appears the odd man out is Teofimo Lopez when Bob Arum, what was it, less than 2 years ago, when he was bragging to Devin Haney and Eddie Hearn that, oh, you signed with the wrong promoter. All the work is over here. You should have signed with me. Well, now Teofimo is basically going to be forced into a Lomachenko rematch.
And that's, something that he definitely doesn't, want to do. You know what I mean? He's kind of like crossed that out from, ever since, that fight happened. So, and now it pretty much seems like he's cornered into a Lomachenko rematch, pending that Lomachenko gets through, Comey. So, and if that is the case, then you're really gonna see a lot of talk coming from Lopez's camp to try to, nix that fight from happening. So that's going to be a little bit of a
And I
bad
wouldn't blame
situation.
them either. The fight wasn't close.
Yeah.
It was a very clear-cut victory for Lopez. The
But
only
does he
reason
beat
why the
him
fight
next
is
time?
even a thing is because they're trying to prop up Lomachenko as usual.
Yeah.
Does he beat them if they fight again? Does he beat Lomachenko if they fight again?
Not only does he beat him if they fight again, he stops him.
The
He
end of
was on
that
the
fight
verge of
tells me
stopping him
that.
in the first fight.
I mean, he did well, but the end of that fight tells me that Lomachenko learned something about himself. That instead of him waiting till round 10 or round 8, wait till round 3, let a little steam get off him, and then if you a better class, then crank it up.
Yeah, but when he cranked it up, Lopez damn near got him out of there in the 12th round. So if he almost got put out in the 12th round against a Lopez that was tired, what's going to happen if he tries to crank it up early against a Lopez that's full of energy? He's going to get sent to hell.
Matt, you say that like okay, yes, everything you're saying is true. I'm not negating the factual nature of what you're saying and that he did catch him, but the tide had turned in that fight, and then what's his name? Chase saved his hair on his chin by getting whatever good shot or whatever he did at the end of the fight. I don't remember, but what I do know is that Lomachenko was winning the fight, and it was just like, dang, it's about to be a tie, or Lomachenko about to win this fight, and then he did whatever to save himself. He hurt him to save himself, to save his claim at the crown.
At no point in that fight did I ever think Lomachenko was winning the fight. He gave up the first 6 or 7 rounds, so he couldn't be winning the fight. The only way he was going to win the fight was by stoppage. And Teofimo showed that he's a lot tougher and has a better chin than Lomachenko must have thought, because Lomachenko had to think that he was going to get him out of there late. Because why else would you not be throwing any punches early? Besides the fact that he was scared of what was coming back to him, you
Yeah,
know. At no point did I think Teofimo was going to lose on the cards. Hell no. He already built the big lead. The fight was over on the cards. If we had to see if Lomachenko would be able to pull this one out with a stoppage. The fight was over on the cards.
yeah, yeah. It was like pretty much done. I think him like having that reluctancy to engage with Teofimo early in the fight kind of like cost him. But it's like you said, man. I mean, if Lomachenko tries to do that, early in the fight against Tio, yeah, he's gonna get hurt. Like I really don't, see like Lomachenko kind of like hurting those guys. They're at 135 pounds. These guys are a lot bigger than he is, so he would have to rely on his mobility and movement. And sometimes that can't be everything against these opponents. So uh, yeah, if they end up fighting each other, again, especially in 2022. Yeah, that's something to kind of like be concerned about there later on down the line. As I mean, it's like the saying goes, you don't get any younger, and Vasyl Lomachenko definitely ain't getting any younger in this case. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wouldn't
So
even give Tio any credit for fighting him again, to be honest with you. I would think that's a lateral move. To me, Teofimo needs to humble himself, go hat in hand, call up Leonard Ellaby, and try to make that tank fight because that's the fight for him if he's going to stay at 135. If not, take your ass to 140 and start over.
yep,
I don't think
yep,
he's gonna. I don't think he's gonna get the Taylor fight.
nope,
So he might as well just start over. But his problem is that all the good guys at 140 is with PBC. So if you're going to be doing business with PBC, then you might as well get Tank. There's
yeah,
no point. Instead of getting picked off by a Subriel Matias or getting the hell beat out of you by Gary Antoine, he don't want those problems,
hmm
because that's a huge risk with little reward. So if I'm him, I'm begging for that Tank fight.
yeah. That's the only route he could go in this instance, man. Because you don't have any good viable options up there at 140 pounds. If Josh Taylor leaves to go up to 147, and there isn't any other opponents left there at 135. It's not like you're gonna go up against a Ryan Garcia and you definitely like we were saying, he definitely isn't down for having a fight with Devin Haney. So Tank is pretty much the best route that he could go. Um, yeah, with you on here, man. El Campeon. What's your thoughts on El Campeon last night?
Hey man, the boy's a legend. I thought that Caleb-Plant would win the fight because I thought that he would basically get off to an early lead and hold on for dear life towards the end, like get on his bike at the end. But Canelo, bad intentions from the beginning, and not only that, unfortunately, Mike Grady lied to me about Caleb-Plant's style because Mike Grady says that Caleb-Plant has a tendency to really push forward with that jab. That motherfucker was pity patting all night. I was hoping he would fall over his foot with that jab. Maybe that means that he's trying to win this fight. I'm not saying that he just showed up to collect the paycheck, but honestly, I thought he would do a lot better than he did. There were some people that thought he did great or good or whatever, but honestly, it was a disappointing performance from Plant because I don't think that he went for it. And you know
Mm,
me, I need people to go for it.
yeah,
Wouldn't you hone it in too if you had Canelo on the other end
No,
who would make you think about overcommitting? Did you see him throw many right hands either?
no, you call that. I just found it very interesting how Canelo, he would allow Plant to get his shit off, but when Plant would try to do his usual escape, Canelo would use the hook not as a punch to hurt him, but as a punch to keep him in place and beat him up with the right hand. That was a very interesting wrinkle from Canelo, which I wasn't expecting. But when you're dealing with a master boxer, hey, this guy pulls everything out of the hat.
If you're referring to Canelo as the master boxer, I would tend to disagree. Canelo won the fight. He did what he needed to do. The adjustment that he made to get that knockout, I think that was a great adjustment. At the same time, Canelo is limited. Fighting that style, if he fought anyone who had decent power, Canelo would potentially, like you said, be down rounds and then be trying to come back at the end round. He didn't do a lot in terms of getting in. All he did was just walk in there. And then he waited till the guy's gas tank, went down, which is a testament to Canelo's endurance. But if he fought a guy who had a gas tank who could jab and at least make you stay honest and stuff, he'd be down on the cards. Like, he didn't do anything special to outmaneuver another fighter. He just was better than the other fighter by literally holding his hands up and just walking toward the fighter and throwing shots and waiting till the dude got tired. Good plan, if that's all you got to do. But yeah, the dude limited. I question my pound for pound number one spot for Canelo now, based upon that performance.
So do you think Canelo-Plant did more than you were expecting him to do?
Do I think Canelo-Plant did more than what I expected him to do? No, I expected him to do more. I expected him to go for it in a control way. Like, I didn't expect him to go out on his shield fighting, but I did expect him to, try to sell out on some right hands to, like, make Canelo at least question whether he could walk forward with his hands down. But he literally was walking with his hands down. And the lead right hand was there, and Canelo-Plant didn't throw it because his practicing on of balance, of transitioning his weight from his back foot to the right foot. I don't think he practiced to be able to do that, to like throw that lead right hand and to be able to stay on balance and stuff. Do I think he did?
So basically, you think
No.
Canelo had a disappointing performance? It wasn't Canelo-Plant doing anything special.
I think both of them. Canelo got the outcome. That there's nothing disappointing about that. He got a highlight stoppage win. At the same time, what I do know is Canelo fighting that style, and if he fought someone who had at least a semi-hard jab, someone who could move and had a semi-hard jab and threw the right hand, he would possibly be down on the cards. Yeah, Canelo's limited. Like, he fights people that he's better than, people that he has better win than, which is a testament to his ability. But he didn't show much skill to do what he did. Like, literally walking in with his hands up, throwing body shots, getting what's his name when he tired. And so instead of him, when he dipped down to the right, like in that little Philly shell position, instead of him moving when the right hand come up to his head, he was tired. So Canelo, the adjustment that he made, which was smart, he started going to the body. And then, Plant would be frozen with his head up in the skylight. And so he got comfortable in that tired state, in that tired mindset, blocking that body shot. And then eventually, he instead of going to the body, he went to the body on the last sequence, the last two sequences before he knocked him out. He went to the body. Canelo-Plant is stuck in that, defensive, Philly shell position. And then the next sequence, instead of him going to the body, he went to the head. Canelo-Plant still stuck in that sequence, and then he caught him because he wasn't moving. He wasn't moving his head from that spot.
Yeah,
He limited.
And I just felt like the thing with Canelo was, like you're saying, he pretty much like had that one strategy and just kept with that strategy the entire fight. Um, just trying to break Caleb-Plant down, using hooks to the body, utilizing the left hook, and pretty much having the left hook be his primary punch over the course of the fight, and that he didn't really mix up his offense until the latter part of the fight, pretty much around like rounds 8, 9, and 10, where you saw a couple of instances where he threw the right hook up top, or he was able to get in with a couple of right hooks to the body or an uppercut. But the left hook was pretty much like his punch the entire fight. It was almost like he turned into Danny Garcia a little bit or something like that, looking for the left hook. What do they call it? The no look hook. So it was just like he had like a primary or just a simple offensive game plan or mindset that he just stuck with, over the course of those rounds and didn't really mix it up to where, he kind of like had like a different gear, so to speak, there to kind of like say that he outclassed Caleb-Plant in this instance. And I think that is kind of like the reasoning behind what Mike's saying as far as like Canelo having that spot in the pound for pound rankings, that you don't really see like that ability of Canelo to have that second gear to mix up his offense to kind of like make him have a clear, pretty much like a clear advantage over his opponent. Um, and that kind of like is something that may be of a concern to some. It's just that, like Mike said, the way that he goes up against like certain opponents to where either they don't have that type of mobility to really give Canelo issues, or they don't have the power to give Canelo issues that much. But what do you say on that, Matt?
Say that again. I'm sorry. I was getting in the car.
uh, no, I was saying in reference to Canelo, some people are kind of like diminishing his stature as a pound for pound fighter because
Oh,
of
come
kind of like
on.
the
How?
well, you might have to ask one of your boys about that, because it wasn't just Mike that was kind of like saying it. Your boy KB kind of like brought it up last night.
Oh, on Chicken Talk?
Yeah.
Damn, I couldn't even listen. I was too busy getting drunk. Oh man. But uh, I think he's number one with a bullet, man. The resume speaks for itself.
What does
Now,
the bullet mean?
that means that no doubt about it, nobody's close. He's head and shoulders above the next guy. Now,
Yeah.
here's my thing, right? What is your pound for pound criteria? If your criteria has anything to do with resume, accomplishments, and stuff like that, and stylistically how you get things done, then to me, there's no doubt Canelo's number one. He's undisputed. First ever undisputed at 168 in the four belt era, and within the last 3 years, he's beaten Plant, Smith, Saunders, Jacobs. That's pretty damn good. And that's on top of already what he accomplished. So to me, I think he's number one. Everyone else is vying for number two. You can make a case for Usyk or Inoue or Spence, somebody like that for number two. But number one, without a doubt, to me, is Canelo. And he showed it last night. He's fought so many different styles of boxers in the last few years and has beaten them all. And it hasn't even been close. So when you're dominating competition and dominating the top guys in your division and around your division, because let's not forget Kovalev was a top guy at 175, different division. So when you're dominating in and around your division, how can you not be number one pound for pound?
What you got something on that, Mike?
I mean, is he dominating? Sure. The crop of guys that it's like saying, how could Terrence Crawford not be number one because he dominated the 135 or 140, whatever the dang division was. That's for Canelo. It's a little bit different because he's fought better fighters than Terrence Crawford. But you could make that same. That's the same thought process that people make for Terrence Crawford, and it's like absurd because he got his undisputed off of Julius and Dungo, who we realize isn't that good. Yes, I'm deflecting by going to Terrence Crawford, but all I'm saying is Canelo, what have you done for me lately? Is where I'm at.
It's kind of
And
like a
so
question on that.
Undisputed is what he's done for you lately.
yes, he's done undisputed, but again, what I saw is that Canelo is able to get undisputed by having, as JR said, a very simple offense and defense, which is walking with his hands up and pretty much throwing power shots to where he gets you on the other end around 6, and eventually one of them power shots land. Yeah, he landing body shots, which is breaking you down, but he's not jabbing to get in. The only thing he literally doing is just falling behind you, walking, plodding, and then eventually you get more tired than he does, and then he throw that same shot and hit you. Does that
But
mean
how
yes?
is he plotting? To me, he's showing footwork and mental pressure.
What
Ring
you say?
generalship is a scoring criteria.
Footwork ain't just walking with your hands up, plodding behind people. Does when Tank does that, is that him showing footwork when he just walk up to people
Yes,
and throw the same
yes.
type of shots?
And I'm glad you mentioned Tank, because to me, Tank and Canelo is very similar. They're comparable. And I've already made this comparison before. Tank and Canelo is the same fighter. The only difference is Tank is fast and Canelo's not as fast as Tank.
And Tank kind of like made that comment himself. He said that Canelo is just a 168-pound version of him. Wanted to add in another guest on here, Brother Troy, coming in, checking in. What's going on, Troy? Troy, you hear us? He got back on. There it goes. Troy, what's up?
I'm good, man. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm good, man. I was just listening to the conversation. It was a good night for boxing, man. Great story. We got history made. So, yes, the question everybody wants to know is where does he go from here? You know, there's Benavidez, there's 175, there's I don't know. You know, where does he go from here?
Um, I said like earlier that in the what is it, the Last Stand with Brian Custer, when Canelo was on there, that he had requested fights or said that he possibly would want fights against Jamal Charlo and David Benavidez, and that he would prefer to have Charlo first before Benavidez. And I kind of like found that to be interesting, given that Jamal Charlo still hasn't really gotten up to the 168-pound division yet. So if
Who actually
Canelo
said
plans
that,
on
boxing source? Who actually
what
said
it
they
was
wanted Charlo?
Canelo.
Because I saw the post fight in the ring. He said he really doesn't know what he wants to do. He's got to take a rest and all that. I didn't hear.
Mhm.
I mean, when did he make that comment?
Through the Last Stand with Brian Custer, that the episode where Canelo was on that.
Okay, so this was before the fight or after?
Yeah, before. It was weeks before.
Oh, okay, that's why. That's why.
Yeah. So, but I mean, even with that, I kind of like found like that to be pretty interesting because I really feel like you know Canelo versus Benavidez, the Cinco de Mayo weekend would be huge. It would be huge. So if you got, of course, Benavidez is scheduled to fight Kyron Davis on this coming Saturday. So if he gets through that, then that pretty much like opens the door for him to go up against Canelo Alvarez next year, man. And that would be a big event, Cinco de Mayo weekend, for those two combatants there. But I mean, you had that on one side, and then of course, Caleb-Plant, gave himself a good little effort. And I said like one guy on the live chat said that that order is what Canelo wanted after the fight as well. But yeah, as far as like Caleb-Plant goes, I had to see like how long it'll be before he gets himself back in the ring. Like I said, with the 168-pound division, it's not really that deep. So probably you only had like a few fights available out there for Caleb-Plant for him coming back. Like I said, I mean, maybe depending on how lucrative it is, maybe a hometown fight with Anthony Durrell or something. Really don't have that many opponents available there for Caleb-Plant after this loss. So it might be a good little while before we see like a matchup available for Caleb-Plant after this loss to Canelo Alvarez. Maybe he waits and sees if Canelo and Benavidez fight in May before he makes his next move, or if he tries to like get himself back into world title contention with a fight that could kind of like invoke a mandatory, maybe a mandatory challenge or something like that. But I really don't see what else is out there for him for his comeback fight immediately after this loss to Canelo Alvarez there. So there's that, man. But like, what else is? I also talked about the lightweight situation, Troy, where you got a good amount of fights that are coming up here in the next few weeks that involve pretty much like around like 8 of the top 10 fighters there in the lightweight division. So that kind of is like a tournament of sorts there to kind of like sort out the lightweight division from this point until 2022. Any thoughts about that lightweight division there, Troy? See, he's still on there. Yeah, I'm not sure if
Yeah, man. I'm
yeah,
still here. I'm sorry.
yeah.
I'm here cooking and listening to you at the same time. You know me.
Oh man, another
Uh,
chef, man. I forgot.
yeah, I don't really have any thoughts about lightweight. I mean, I just want to see. I want to see him get it done. You know, Haney and Keo, and then if Stevenson wants to move up, hey, get it done already. Or Loma, if he wants to get his rematch, I don't see what the problem is because you have the fighters there, but as usual, politics come into play, and we're sitting having these conversations again, man.
Yeah, yeah. There's of course like the little situation that happened for that original fight that Tank Davis had, and so now he's going up against Isaac Cruz, and um, you know, hopefully in a few weeks we finally get to see Teofimo Lopez against George Kambosos. Um, and now we recently had announced officially that Devin Haney against Jojo Diaz is going to be a day before Tank Davis versus Isaac Cruz Gonzalez. And then that next week after that, you're going to have Vasyl Lomachenko against Richard Comey. So within that 3 week span or so, you're going to have 4 fights in the lightweight division. And all of those guys are around there in the top of the division. And kind of like talked about it a little bit earlier, you do have that little wild card of Ryan Garcia that's still out there. It just depends on what happens when he does get himself back into the ring. And, with these fights that are coming up, that kind of like could sort out the lightweight division a little bit more to where they could hopefully have matchups to have those winners face each other. If you have guys that are the favorites, like if you have T.O. winning, you have Tank winning, you have Lomachenko winning, you have Haney winning, then hopefully you have some type of instance where those 4 fighters could be able to have 2 fights with those 4 fighters involved sometime in 2022, and then it could culminate into a huge match there by the second half of 2022. The only wild card is for me is Teofimo Lopez is the one guy that kind of like seems like he's really not into staying there at 135 pounds. So there is that. Want to add in another person to jump into the live conversation. The leader of Chicken Talk himself, Lefty, is in the building. What's happening? Like Lefty, you got you in there? It seemed like, oh, what you were muted. You weren't muted. Now you're on, man. What's going on? Looks like having the issues with the audio, man. Because I'm not getting any audio coming through for that. So hopefully that could get going.
I actually want to give you some props for something, man.
What's happening?
You covered the Joppy fight, man. I want to give you some props for that. So thank you.
What? Oh no, you mean the thing with
Chop. Dang it. He always would be like, why you keep calling me Joppy? But that's what chop. Yeah.
Yeah, that was that previous Friday he was co-feature about there, and he was able to do his thing over the course of like 8 rounds or so, got a decision victory, and we might see him against that young talent there, you know what I'm saying? So we might see him in the ring against Jaleel Major Hackett there in DC pretty soon. So I want to add back in. Let's see, Lefty, you able to get in?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you all good.
Okay. No, just got home. I was listening to y'all.
Yeah, true that, man. I know we had the conversation yesterday in reference to that Canelo-Plant fight, but going by what was said last night, like we kind of like talked about the thing with Canelo and how people kind of try to bring up potential opponents for him, and there was like one particular guy on Twitter that put up a poll about who would Canelo fight next, and it did have like 3 fighters that are involved in a certain network, and only Jamal Charlo was the only option that was outside of the 3 choices. But this was
and none of the options were super heavyweight, super middleweights.
Nope, none of them. But this was after he posts an article on Sports Illustrated. Oh my God, yo. And he puts in the title with undisputed super middleweight title in hand. Canelo Alvarez is ready for a rematch with Gennady Golovkin. Oh my God. Oh my goodness. Like, can we stop mentioning Gennady Golovkin's name with Canelo Alvarez? Like, please. Like,
how do we even know that Golovkin wants to fight Canelo?
Can we stop mentioning Charlo too?
Well, the only name that should be mentioned. Hold on, first of all, Canelo mentions Charlo as a potential opponent, so his name has to be in the conversation because Canelo mentioned him. But Benavidez is the name that I've been mentioning for over a year. I want to see Benavidez.
Yeah, I do too. I do too.
That's all I want to see. Benavidez and Canelo.
Yep.
We know it'll be a lot more exciting than what last night was.
Yep. It would be your action pack. You know that Benavidez will throw some shots. He'll throw punches and bunches and won't really, care about, trying to get some pot shots in and try to score points
Yeah,
over, rounds, over the course of rounds, like you kind of like seen with Canelo-Plant there in the first half of the fight. You know, um, my thing with Charlo was, like I said, I mean, if Canelo mentioned his name, then that's a potential opponent for him.
yeah,
Whether
yeah.
Charlo is going to move up to 168 and have a tune-up fight or warm-up fight beforehand or not. That's
That's what he
kind of
said.
like,
He said he wants to move up to 168 and have a tune-up fight in February.
yeah. So if he has like that tune-up fight in February, then I mean, there you go. I mean, you got something to set the stage up for, either Canelo Charlo in May or Canelo and Benavidez in May. So
Yeah, Charlo's the ultimate crying wolf guy. I can move to 160, but I haven't yet, and I'm not going to really. And I'm not fighting anybody that's 25 years old, and I have the size to move to 168, but I haven't done it yet. And he's just crying wolf. I mean, because really, he told on himself when he was talking about Plant. He said that he could actually move up to 168 easy and beat Plant. In so many words, I'm paraphrasing, but notice he hasn't. He's struggling to make 160, I'm guessing, and he stays there. Why?
But he said
Since
no.
it's so easy.
He said that about Plant after Plant had already had the Canelo fight. He was just he was just having a conversation and passing it. Yeah, he thinks he could. I
But
mean, I don't
but the
want to hear
thing
him say,
is,
"Yeah, I move up to 168 and get my ass whooped." Do you?
listen. If he wants this fight, he has to move up and do something. Instead of all these cats talk, but you don't see the action behind it.
I mean, he said he's moving up to 168 in February. He's going to have a tune-up at 168 in February.
Yeah, and he said okay. Well, you know what? I bet you in
I mean,
February he's gonna
that's the
take
first
another.
time. That's the first time I've heard him actually formulate a plan to go up to 168. What I think it is
I tell you,
Benavidez is in September, is in May, and then it'll be Charlo in September. I mean, he's
not
already got the
fighting
word. He
Benavidez.
basically what it was. He already got the word that he's in rotation for Canelo. So now he puts in the move. He puts the plan
Why
in
would
place
he be in rotation for Canelo? Why?
because
How-
Canelo's going to fight Benavidez and he's going to fight Charlo because that's where his most
No. I
money is.
said,
I mean,
why would he be in
Canelo's not.
rotation for Canelo? What does he bring to the dance? What?
If he brings money to the dance. Nobody else.
No, he does not.
What do you
No,
mean?
he doesn't.
What do you mean?
but here's the question:
His team has the money to pay Canelo what Canelo wants to make a fight.
But he doesn't have anything Canelo wants. If it was all
Money.
about money if it was all about money with Canelo, then he wouldn't be undisputed right now. He just chased money.
He just got his highest payday, highest guaranteed payday of his career.
But he also got undisputed, which he wasn't what he wanted.
Yeah, that comes with that.
Yeah.
That came with that payday.
so
And if
then,
Charlo's worth so much money,
I mean, if it was all about undisputed, he could have got undisputed at 160 against Andrade.
And so could Charlo because he's still there.
Andrade only had one belt. Canelo, if it was all about legacy and undisputed, Canelo could have got 160 undisputed against Andrade.
Charlo was still at 160.
No, because you trying to
hasn't
make it
he
seem
got-
like all these guys ain't the same when they all are the same. They all about money.
Why hasn't he?
This is
But
a
listen, you
business.
talk about the past. Why hasn't Charlo
No, you talked
become
about the past with
undisputed at
Charlo.
160?
You said what
Huh?
Charlo have said in the past, so I could talk about you.
No, I didn't say anything he said in the past.
They've offered Andrade a fight. Andrade didn't want to fight. They've also
All of y'all
offered
do
Triple
say
G
the
a fight.
same
He didn't want
thing.
to fight.
This, that, and the third from years ago.
What you mean? It ain't what
My
I say.
thing
It's what I know. It's not what I say.
My
It's what I
thing
know
is this,
for a fact.
no, I get it.
Yeah.
I get that's what you know. But my thing is this: what has he done for his career at 160? He says, I'm always hearing about so and so ducked him.
He's had a
So
shitty
what?
reign at 160.
What has he
He's
done
had a shitty reign at his career as his reign at 160 has been shitty. I mean, but you can't make these guys fight you. They offered Triple G a fight. He didn't want it. Triple G won't
Who
even
has
get in
the
there with
belt right
Andrade.
now?
Triple G,
Who has the belt right now at 160?
Triple G, Andrade, Murata, and Charlo. All four have belts.
Charlo.
Who is he fought?
Charlo's team has offered Andrade a fight. They've offered Triple G a fight. Neither one of them
What about
wanted
the
it. What
last
else are they
dude?
supposed to do?
What about the last
Murata?
dude? Yeah.
Murata? I
Yes,
have no
yes.
idea about Murata.
Okay,
I have
then.
no idea about Murata. Murata
What
hasn't
you
fought
can
since
do,
2019.
what it doesn't matter if you could only work with people who want to work with you. So why doesn't he at least get the other belt? Then he could negotiate with the other two to make it
Well,
happen. Because money talks. Period.
yeah, but here's the thing, though, especially in the middleweight division. Like, here we are, we're going into the latter parts of December of this year. And after all that time within the past 2 years, we're finally getting a unification bout at 160 pounds. And the only reason that we're really getting that unification at 160 pounds is because of the marketing value that, you know, Murata has in Japan. It's not really
Yes.
about Golovkin. It's about Murata and having that big fight in Japan against Gennady Golovkin. Outside of that, you're not going to have one unification bout happening at 160 pounds. If so, it would have happened already. We should have
Yeah.
had at the very least Demetrius Andrade versus Gennady Golovkin there at 160 pounds, especially if they're going to be fighting under the same network through the zone or under Matchroom, and they had not even negotiated for that type of fight, which is crazy to me. But that's how it is so far. And so once, things kind of like cleared itself up, that fight between Murata and Golovkin was pretty much the only route for unification at 160 pounds, because Golovkin wouldn't fight Andrade, and Golovkin was not going to fight Charlo, and the Charlo Andrade ship had really sailed at that particular point. So as of right now, this is the only unification bout that's out there, and depending on who wins, which I hope it's Murata, then we see what
Me too.
happens next in the 160-pound division. Because if Golovkin wins, you can forget about him unifying against either Andre or Charlo, because he's not going to take those fights.
I'm just sick of hearing the man's name because he ain't doing nothing. And he's at
None of
160.
them
Not at
are doing nothing.
168.
None of you hearing it. Okay, you say you sick of doing his name, but none of them are doing nothing. So if you hearing his name, that means at least his team is doing more for the others, because at least you hearing about them. These other guys, none of them are doing nothing. They're all the same. They all fighting around each other instead of fighting each other.
And to be honest with you, that's the most that's the most disgusting thing ever in the sport, to say that, okay, well, because this one is not doing anything, you say the other one's not doing anything also.
No,
Come
I
on,
said
man.
they're all not doing anything. They all fighting around each other. They all
I
think
got
they
it,
they
man.
all think they
I'm
better
just
than what
kind of
they really
bothered
are,
that you got all
and
this
none of them
talent
want
and
and none of them
nobody
want to
wants
take
to
the
do
risk.
nothing.
Andrade could, well, it ain't his fault, Canelo. I mean, you got to understand, these guys getting paid. Triple G was getting paid $14 million to fight, didn't want to fight Andrade. Canelo was getting paid $36 million to fight, didn't want to fight Andrade. This is ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
All we have now is, you got a unification fight between Golovkin and Murata. And in less than 2 weeks, you got Demetrius Andrade going to New Hampshire to fight JC Quigley. Like, that's what we got going on here. Like, Demetrius Andrade shouldn't be fighting the Quigleys and the Liam Williams and the Luke Keelers of the world. Now,
But
some part
that's
of
what these
that
guys
is
want
on
to do.
him, but the other thing is like, you got other guys that are right there available, even if it's not even Golovkin. You got Jaime Munguia that's available. That's been
He don't want to
a
fight nobody either. He don't want to fight
yeah.
nobody either. He's the
So
mandatory for the WBO and WBC, and he's fighting Gabe Rosado. He don't want to
Gabe
fight nobody
Rosado.
either.
So there you go. I mean, you got like Jaime Munguia with a whole bunch of fights. What is he, like 43-0 right now? And he's
Yeah.
been the WBO #1 contender, pretty much the mandatory. And they hadn't ordered that fight, and he's been the WBO top contender for over a year. And he has been the WBC top contender for at least probably 4 or 6 months. And they hadn't ordered a mandatory for the WBC for that
No,
instance
because
yet.
they ordered him to fight Derevchenko for the WBC
Yeah,
eliminator.
for
He
the
said he's
WBC
fighting him.
eliminator.
They said he's
Yep.
fighting him after he fights Rosado. None of these guys want to fight. They wasted their time.
Yeah, so 160 is a real messed up division because
Every
Like,
weight
what was
division
that?
seems to be like that, doesn't it? You know, you take from
No, 160,
135 to 140 to
160, 126,
147.
and 175 are
126.
the
Yep.
three worst horrible divisions in boxing.
Yep. Like, there's
There's
no
no
reason.
imagination, no
Nobody
matchmaking.
nobody wants to unify at 126. Nobody wants to unify at 175. Nobody wants to unify at 160. And shoot, the way that Barbarian is acting, nobody is trying to unify at 130 pounds either.
Yeah. That's another one. You've
Like,
had your chance. At 130. You've had those two belts for what? 3 years now, and haven't had a
yeah,
unification.
almost 3 years. Yep,
You had
almost 3 years.
Herring and Bichette were champions, and now Valdez and Shakur are champions, and they're not unified.
Yep. And this is and like that's a horrible situation right there, you know. And
There's no excuse for it.
and now they're trying to bring up somebody from two divisions down originally to fight to fight
Navarrete.
Valdez, who was
Yeah,
one
Valdez.
division
Yeah.
down. Come on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
It's just bad all across the board when it comes to these divisions and trying to unify. So that's just that's kind of like out of it. But I know that you
but
have the
my
fight next
point
week.
my point was this. I hope Charlo actually does move up to 168 because they ain't shit at 160. Try something, do something. The fight I want to see is Andrade. I think he should move up. He could move up to 168 and fight Ryder, or he could move up to 175 and fight Bivol.
Mm-hmm.
It ain't no imagination with this matchmaking. Everybody's just happy to get their little money and fight their little bums. If they didn't want to, they could easily say, no, I'm not fighting this guy. Give me something else. But they're getting paid good money to fight the competition that they fighting, so they're happy.
Yep. Yes. That's pretty much like how it is now in this situation, man. So,
Yeah, do something,
like I
shake and move.
said,
Don't just sit back and complain that nobody want to
and
fight you, and you keep taking these bum fights.
2022 got to be a little bit better with these with a lot of these divisions and the top fighters in these divisions. So we got to see how that works itself out. Um, yeah, I know that I mentioned what's on slate for next week. The Benavidez brothers are going to be headlining a card. Kiko Martinez is going to have his 50th world title shot in the featherweight division. This time against Kid Galahad. Um, and then the following week is Crawford versus Porter, and I know that some people were talking about the undercard of Canelo-Plant. They might have the same type of thoughts about the undercard for Crawford Porter, but I mean, I think you may see a couple of stoppages in that card, undercard. So that's the thing I'm going to look for. At least, Isaac Dogbe is going to be part of this card against Chris Diaz. So you'll see how that happens here.
Is Nico Walsh Ali gonna be part of it?
No, I think he's going to end up being part of that December 11th card with Lomachenko and Comey. He's probably going to be in that. So it's what Lomachenko, Comey, and then Jared Anderson is going to be fighting on that card. I forgot who that opponent was, but we'll see how that is. It seems like someone had like a overall thought in reference to Canelo Alvarez being a undisputed super middleweight champion by winning 4 belts by beating approximately 0 good fighters, the greatest undisputed champion of all time.
Correction. His
Who do you think had a better?
his undisputed was better than Terrence Crawford's.
Right.
Go ahead and say something, Troy. Go ahead and say something. You know you want to.
Undisputed is undisputed. You fight the champions that are there. You have no control over that. I mean, because to be honest with you, you take Canelo's undisputed, you take Crawford's undisputed, they're both better than Floyd Mayweather's undisputed. Oh, that's right. He was never undisputed. I'm going back on me.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Well, if it wasn't
Well,
for
he was never undisputed. Who was he? Who was he? Who was the guy that he should have been fighting that was a champion that would have made his resume better?
who you
All
talking
Who
the
you talking
champions
about?
that were there,
Who you
which
talking
is how
about?
you become undisputed. All the champions.
Nah,
Who you talking about,
come on,
Lefty?
man. And Dungo got a belt. Every champion ain't the same. Now I can see if you're talking about now you get a champion like a Usyk undisputed. Yeah, that's good as
Who else was
anybody's
champion at the
undisputed in
time?
history.
Okay, okay,
That's
hold
better
on a
than
second. No,
anybody.
no,
You
no.
got
Just,
4
just
belts, man.
hold on a
I could
second
get
for
you
me.
a belt. I could get you a
Hold
belt,
on.
my man.
Would you
Do
hold
you
on a
box? I
second,
could get
please?
you a belt.
Let me
You for
hold on
Jake
a
mentioning
Paul
second.
could get a
Dungo.
belt.
Thanks for mentioning
Who
Dungo.
who else was there for a Crawford to fight?
No, I'm not.
Dungo.
No, I'm not
Thank you.
saying. I'm
Thank
not
you.
saying.
Dungo.
Look. I'm not saying. Look, I like Crawford, but I'm saying you got 4 belts out here. Anybody could get a belt. You said I was asking you about Floyd, who had a belt that he should have fought that was better than who he actually did fight.
If I said that he was not undisputed, the
I like
simple
quality.
answer,
I take quality
the simple answer
competition
is
over the belt.
the simple answer is if he wanted to, all he had to do was fight all the champions, but he never did. So
Who
there you
was the
have it.
champion that he didn't fight?
well,
That was better.
here's the thing.
Oh my God.
Well, Troy, in the first instance, if it wasn't for a guy by the name of Zabdil Judah messing
Yeah.
around and losing to Carlos Baldomir, then you probably
Who
would have
Floyd
had
also beat.
Floyd Mayweather as the undisputed welterweight champion at that particular time. So that's
I
one thing.
remember that. Yeah, but he beat Baldomir, so why didn't he go get the other belt after he beat
Yeah.
Baldomir?
Who had the belt?
Yeah,
It's
who
okay
had
to
the
say
belt?
I don't remember, Troy.
Yeah.
I
I
don't remember.
like quality
I don't
competition.
remember.
Like Benavidez, even though he don't have a belt, he's a better fighter than Plant. I like quality competition. I'm not too. The belts are too easy to get.
We all like quality
I
competition, but
agree
when
with
you want to
you,
be
Lefty.
listen.
Yeah,
When
thank
you
you.
want to be
I'm
undisputed,
not.
you fight all the champions and you become undisputed. Then you go after the number ones, the number twos, and all that, and you pad your legacy and you retire, much like Bernard Hopkins.
No.
He was
I would like to see.
undisputed.
I put
He was
it this way.
undisputed too, wasn't he?
I would have rather.
Ndongo
Would you
sucks.
have rather seen Crawford
Okay.
versus Ndongo or Crawford versus Pacquiao?
As long
I
as
would have
they
rather
were
see Crawford
champions,
versus
and
Pacquiao.
listen,
No,
Answer the
if
question.
Pacquiao won the
Answer the
champ
question.
I
and he
didn't hear
moved
your
up to
question.
140,
All of us are talking at
he
once.
moved up to 147? Huh?
He not answering your question.
Oh, okay.
What is the question? All of us were talking at once, so I didn't hear a question.
I said, would you have rather see Crawford fight Ndongo or Crawford fight Manny Pacquiao? Jump up to 147 and fight Manny Pacquiao.
Obviously, the answer would be Manny Pacquiao, but if his goal was to get undisputed at 140, let him do that at 140 and then go fight Manny Pacquiao at 147. That's cool.
Ndongo sucks.
According to you, everybody that Crawford fought sucks.
Not everybody. He about to fight a real fighter here in how many weeks? 2 weeks.
Crawford got some good names, some decent names on his resume. Like his win against the boy that Boots just beat was a pretty good win at that time. His win against Diaz was a pretty good win. He got some solid wins on his resume. It's just
against Delorme, against Diaz, against
it's just his opponents ain't been his opponents. Yeah, his opponents ain't been promoted to the point where people actually respect him as a win.
When he had that first unification.
Let me ask you this.
That was his best win at 140 pounds.
Let me ask you this, Lefty.
Victor Postal.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, Lefty. Out of all of Terrence Crawford's opponents at 140, which one could have beaten Danny Garcia, who is probably the number 5 or 6 welterweight? There are a lot of other.
I think Garcia would have beat the same guys Crawford beat.
Okay, so all I'm saying is, if that's the case, if Garcia was still at 140,
but Crawford actually did it. So you can't take away what he did by saying that this guy would have beat this guy.
Garcia's run at 140
That's when you get into Triple G territory where he wins every fantasy matchup, but never actually fights anybody.
Garcia's run at 140 was a lot better than Crawford's run at 140, even though Crawford got the accolade of being the undisputed champion. Do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I agree. He had a better run at 140. Yeah.
So the thing is, okay, Crawford was at 140 at the right time and fought Ndongo. for the undisputed championship.
You won't let me get
Danny
that
Garcia.
Hold on 1 second for me.
But and
Hold on. When
Dongo
you
went
said
on
that
the road and
Danny's
got
run,
2 belts.
no. But you said Danny's run was better. You know, was he undisputed?
No,
Troy.
he's talking about quality competition was better. That's what he means. His
Was he
quality competition
undisputed?
was better.
Because
Troy.
that's all I want to know. Was he undisputed?
No, Troy.
Because it takes work to beat all them champions. It takes work. So
The
okay,
thing
I
is,
don't understand
the
how
point-
I don't understand how his run was better when he accomplished less.
okay.
Well, it takes luck. It takes a lot of luck too. Because Ndongo going over there and beating that Russian and then going to beat Ricky Burns was that helped Crawford a lot. He didn't have to beat Burns again.
If you hear the
Russian-
name that Danny Garcia fought, you would know how he has a better claim at a better run at 140. If you heard the list of names, and then you heard the
And
list
if
of
they
names
fight-
that Terrence Crawford fought.
If they fight right now, you know who wins, Crawford or Danny Garcia? If they fight right now.
That's not what we're asking. What I'm saying is,
Thank you very.
the thing is,
Crawford wins.
the point I was making though, with Danny Garcia being less of a fighter than Terrence Crawford, Danny Garcia very well could have beat all of the guys that Terrence Crawford beat to get the 140 undisputed run. So all I'm saying is, yes, he
But
deserves
he
to get
didn't though. Those are the facts. He did
Troy,
not do it.
let me finish,
He
please.
didn't, but he didn't.
But-
He didn't do it. I mean,
He
you
didn't.
can't take
Okay,
away what
everybody
Crawford
knows-
did because
Everybody knows that he didn't, guys. Yes. All I'm saying is, with Danny Garcia being less of an opponent, less of a fighter than him, and probably 5 other guys at welterweight, his run at 140 was not impressive. With him not getting undisputed, Tim Bradley's run was better than Terrence Crawford's. Shit.
Bradley has a great run at 140.
Let me think of
but-
somebody who probably ain't a champion and who probably had a better run at 140.
I think basically what we're saying is that Crawford's undisputed is history making, and not a lot of guys do it.
Right. That's
But
pretty
there
much
are guys who could do it though. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but it takes
Who?
a lot to do it, man. It's not as
Yeah, but
easy.
Danny
as-
Garcia,
you know,
that's what I'm trying to let you know.
Like
And why
even
didn't
look
they
at
do
Josh
it then?
Taylor.
Like,
He was
for
helped out by
example-
Josh Taylor was helped out by the
Why didn't he do
WBSS,
it?
which had all the champions in it, except for Ramirez and Hooker.
Danny Garcia
it's just a lot.
only had to fight Tim Bradley and he would have been undisputed. Is that correct, JR?
No, Bradley was at 147.
No. What I'm saying, when Danny Garcia had all them belts, and then wasn't it around the same time when Bradley had all them belts, or was that a little bit before when what's the name did it?
I think Bradley was around there at the time when Garcia was a unified champ. Because remember, Garcia had the WBC and WBA.
And then
So-
Bradley had the other ones.
He had WBO. I don't know if he had IBF though.
No,
He
he
might have
didn't
had
have
IBF.
So all I'm saying, Troy, is why didn't he do it? I don't know why he didn't fight Tim Bradley. Shit, Tim Bradley didn't fight him because it was a Manny Pacquiao fight. Again, which one would you fight? Would you fight for that
I
one,
already
or would you
answered
fight?
I already answered that question, but I do have a question for you. If his run was so easy,
Go
how
ahead
come it hasn't
and
been
make
duplicated?
your point.
How
Just
come it
try
hasn't
to
been
be right.
duplicated?
Troy, go ahead.
How come
It
it hasn't
has.
been
It has.
duplicated yet?
Josh Taylor is 140. Josh Taylor is 140
Mhm.
unified champion.
Now
Undisputed
he is.
champion.
Undisputed.
Now he is because what? Yeah, but how many champions did he fight to get all those belts?
Oh, Josh Taylor run was
fought-
better than Terrence Crawford. Thank you.
he
Thank
fought
you.
1, 2,
I didn't
Lefty.
ask you that. I said how many champions did he fight
I'm
to get all
telling
those
you.
belts?
Whether you ask me or not.
He fought. What was his first belt? Was
Huh?
it vacant?
Regis
or was
Pro
that?
Grace. Well, that was the first unification was Regis
that
Pro
was
Grace
first
for Taylor.
unification.
Yeah, that was in
Regis.
England.
Then
That was in
Ramirez. I
England.
said, but was his first belt vacant, or did he fight somebody for the first belt?
I
Josh
don't
Taylor.
know.
I thought he
I'm
fought
asking.
what's that guy's name?
See, he fought that
Baranchik?
talented
Ivan
guy that
Baranchik?
nobody knows about. Who?
Ivan Baranchik.
Barrett.
Who's that?
Yeah,
No, I'm saying, what is
he's the guy that just lost
okay,
to
well, who else?
Montana Love.
Yeah, that was IBF. Like he fought
Right.
Ivan Baranchik for IBF, then unified against Regis Pro Grace with the WBA, and then Ramirez had the WBC and the WBO from beating Maurice Hooker.
Okay.
Yeah.
The fact that y'all had to struggle to name him tells me that
Well,
We didn't struggle to name him. We
the
didn't.
run is over. No, well, you didn't
I'll tell
answer
you this.
anything.
But-
You didn't answer anything. It was boxing sauce that had all the answers. Because you know what? Because you know what, Lazy and MG, y'all didn't know. Boxing sauce knew, hence the name Boxing Sword. Because
It's
you two
still
didn't
No,
know.
better
I
than
let him
Terrence
answer
Crawford
that.
run, which is
Thank
the
you,
point
thank you.
that's being made. Terrence Crawford run for undisputed to get history was pretty weak.
Let me tell
In
you,
your
Troy.
opinion,
I mean, you got
because you can't
Usyk
change the fact that
run,
he did it.
which is
You
top
can't
tier.
change the fact that
Then
he
you got
did it.
Josh Taylor
Okay,
You
run
can't.
is right below.
okay. Here's the thing, right? In both the situations for Josh Taylor and Terrence Crawford, they came into the undisputed title fight holding 2 belts. Josh Taylor came into the undisputed title fight fighting Jose Carlos Ramirez. Terrence Crawford came in there to fight Julius Ndongo. Who was the better opponent, Ramirez or Ndongo?
All I know is this.
Answer the
All
question,
I know
Troy.
is this.
Answer the question first.
All I know is this: that
Answer
if
the
it was
question,
so
Troy.
easy to get undisputed, listen to me. If it was so easy to get
It's
undisputed,
not
how come it's so
easy to
few of
get
them
it.
in boxing? How
It's
come it's
not
so
easy.
few of them in
It's not
boxing?
easy to
Thank
get it
you
because
very much. That's all I
you got
wanted to
so
hear.
much.
I'm going to go back on.
Yeah, because you got so many politics involved. It's so hard. Like you said, why he didn't fight Tim Bradley. Tim Bradley got on TV himself and said, when I was with Top Rank, we weren't allowed to fight PBC fighter.
He
So
wasn't
that's why he didn't
around.
fight Tim Bradley.
Who are you talking about?
Whoever MG was talking about.
Troy don't listen.
You talking
That's
about
the
why
problem.
somebody with
No, no.
PBC didn't fight Tim Bradley?
Tim
I
Bradley
Troy
mean,
don't
you got
listen.
so
That's
many
the
and
problem.
politics.
Garcia.
It's so much
Who
politics and stuff involved. No,
Go.
it's not easy. It's not
Where
easy at
did Tim
all.
Bradley come from?
He was talking
You
about Tim
weren't
Bradley
listening,
earlier.
Troy. That's the problem.
No,
No,
because
we're talking
I'm
about
talking about
we're
Crawford. I'm still
right,
focused on Crawford. And Crawford really
right.
wasn't around when Tim was at 140. He was at a lower weight class.
No, but what the issue is that we're talking about Terrence Crawford, and your point was about Crawford being the undisputed champion at 140. But the thing about it is that even with him being at the undisputed champion at 140, his resume at 140 isn't up to par in comparison to the guys that are being mentioned, like the Josh Taylors or the Tim Bradleys or the Danny Garcias.
Well, Danny Garcia can't be in there. But let me say this.
Well,
Was
Why
there
listen,
another
why can't Danny
champion?
Garcia be in there?
Was
Why can't
was
Danny
there
because he
Garcia
another
be
wasn't
in there?
champion
unified.
at
He
one?
wasn't undisputed. That's why.
Was there another champion or any champions at 140 that he missed? Did he
Who?
miss any?
No,
Okay,
no. Matter
thank
of
you.
fact,
So we could. I'm back
he
to
had
point
already beat
A.
one of the
He
champions. Look, he had already
he could
beat one of the
only fight
champions,
who
Ricky
is there.
Burns.
Correct? Why
He
are
had
you
already beat
blaming him
Ricky
from the
Burns.
talent that's
So I'm
there?
not blaming.
He beat
Look,
Ricky
I'm not
Burns at
blaming
Yes,
him.
you are.
135.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. No, I'm not. What did you? No, I'm not blaming him.
You just said his run was weak and all that, but he has no
It
control over
is
who was the
weak.
champion.
It's
No,
weak.
that's
Okay,
We're
but
MJ
judging
there
him
saying
off
you
it.
of
go
That's
who
not
he
again.
me
You
fought.
saying
blaming him for the competition.
No
He
one's
has no
blaming
control over
anyone.
who's
We're
the
just speaking
champion.
the truth. We're telling
None.
you based upon what actually happened, not about what could happen. If you take someone's resume and say what
We're
crop of
not talking about
opponents,
resume. We talk about facts
we
and
are talking
champions.
about resume.
He was
You
chased
Well,
and
just don't listen, Troy.
undisputed.
You
He
just don't
beat all the
listen.
champions.
You don't listen, Troy. We are talking
okay.
about resume.
Hey, speaking of Montana Love, Troy, you see you got signed by Matchroom?
I don't know who the hell that is.
Montana Love. You remember we talked about him last time we was on the show together. He fought on Jake Paul undercard.
That sounds like a country singer. I don't know who the hell that is.
Yeah, Montana. He from
Oh my
Cleveland.
God.
He got signed. He got signed to Matchroom, thanks to Jake Paul. Okay, y'all go ahead, finish, MG.
He's his manager.
No, he fought on undercard and Matchroom liked him, so he gave him the opportunity and he got signed.
Hey, I'm about to leave. I'm about to watch Insecure. We going in circles
Oh
talking
my
about Troy
God.
points.
I'm needling Troy because we talked about Jake Paul last time I was on. I'm just needling at him a little bit.
Insecure. That pretty much describes your opinions. Thank you.
Oh no.
Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me.
And if I fought in a car, and turn on the heat and lock all the windows, you wouldn't like me.
What is going on here? Oh boy. Oh man. But yeah.
So who
Yeah, I
y'all got
think
Crawford or y'all got Porter? Anybody picking Porter?
I am.
You are?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. I'm picking Porter for the decision win.
And boxing sauce.
Yeah.
I think I'll take that bet. And here's a simple bet. There's this vegan burger place in DC. I got to send you the name, right?
Okay.
If I win, then basically you got to buy me lunch from there. They got a beet burger I want to try and something else I want to try there. They got a beet cheeseburger. BEETS, beets, like you put on your salad, right?
Uh-huh.
So, and then if you win, I'll take you to Ben's Chili Bowl and stuff you full of chili and keep you from going to the bathroom.
Okay. You could have that side. If Porter wins, you could take me to Ben's Chili Bowl. But if Crawford wins, not only will I buy you a beet cheeseburger, but I'll take the risk and try out the beet cheeseburger because ain't no way. Like, come on, man. Like, I've never eaten beets in my life. Like, what in the world? Come on, dog.
Yeah. But listen. You also got to try the wheat germ shake.
Oh, good Lord. Have mercy. This man got
I'm only
2
messing
grand.
with you, man. They don't sell no damn wheat germ.
Oh goodness, man. This isn't like man, what's my place out there, man? Shoot, it's like New Vegan Cafe or something. They changed their name like about 3 times in the last 3 years out there in DC, man. But
I'm
hey,
about to go vegan. You seen the price of motherfucking chicken? I'm about to go vegan.
I've seen the price of everything, man. I see the price of everything.
Oh goodness, like everything's going up, man. It's getting ridiculous. But yeah, all right, I'll take you up on that bet there for the Crawford Porter fight.
All right,
Hopefully,
well, it's recorded now, so yeah.
Yeah, it's on record. Yeah, it's on record. At least this isn't as bad as when I almost took the risk of putting my reputation on the line by betting on Fury. But if Fury lost, that I would have had to subscribe to Scott's OnlyFans page.
Who? Because you were laughing. I didn't hear that.
All right, hold on. So when the third fight between Fury and Wilder was originally scheduled, I had put on the bet that Tyson Fury would win the fight. But if he didn't win the fight, then I would have had to subscribe to the OnlyFans page of Malik Scott for 6 months.
You know what? I took a bet like that with one of my oldest friends. We go back 40 years, right? This was when Wilder fought, what's the brother name? Bermain Stavern the first time, right?
Uh-huh.
And I was so hyped, man. I said he gonna beat him because fighting tall fighters, like he said, that's his thing. That's his speciality. Those are his words, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he came in sick and he lost on points. And for the next 3 months, I had to use a profile picture of Wilder. and I have to say nothing but nice things about him and Floyd Mayweather. Oh God!
You don't like
I don't think
TBE
I ever got over
either.
that,
You don't like
man.
Wilder or TBE.
Yeah, he don't.
I had to go to therapy after all that, man. It was terrible, man. I had to go to therapy. Yeah, man.
Do you like Canelo?
Terrible. Huh?
Do you like Canelo?
See, the truth is, man. I'm gonna tell you the truth. I appreciate Wilder and Floyd and all the fighters, but I just give them a hard way to go because I don't like nobody playing with death in the ring, saying they want to catch a body, and that I don't play with death. It's a real serious subject, right? You shouldn't say it out your mouth, right? Anyway, and now the Floyd situation, I just thought that the dude was simply fighting on neutral, and he was boring as hell, and he knew what he was doing. He was just picking opponents.
He did fight on neutral. He did.
Yeah. He did.
He was that much better than everybody else he fought.
He was that much better than the people that he picked, right?
Yeah, I mean, he fought everybody. He fought what, 20-something world champions or former world champions? I mean, you love the belts, right?
I keep
I
hearing
mean, no,
that.
no matter who you fought, no matter who you fight, there's always another guy that they wanted you
Yeah,
to
but you know
fight.
why
That's
did
one
he?
thing.
Why did he avoid
That's
Khan?
one thing.
He could have fought Khan. He could have fought Pacquiao way earlier.
You
Why did he avoid
know what?
that
I think
fight
Khan.
so
I think the
confidently?
Khan situation. I think you know what? I think the Khan situation was something personal. Because if you notice Floyd, he's petty. He's very petty. Like he's being petty with Gary Russell, and
Lloyd is
that's why he won't let
petty.
Javante.
I never,
That's why he won't
I
let
never
Javante
realized
fight
that.
Gary Russell Jr. Because he don't like Gary Russell.
Yeah,
So yeah, he is petty.
He don't like Gary Russell, man.
Because
Gary
Gary
Russell don't
Russell,
like Floyd either.
because Gary
Yep.
Russell told him in so many words that he ain't sugar honey iced tea.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, he pretty much did say that.
And he told him he was gonna slap him or something. So you know.
And we all know Gary Russell ain't scared to slap anybody, just as Terrence Crawford.
You know what? Terry Crawford break that boy.
Yeah, he would. But listen, Gary Russell's a part of Wu Tang because he ain't nothing.
Yeah. So yeah, man. But hey, that's all I wanted to run down here in this particular episode, man. But yet that bet is on wax. It's on record for the Crawford Porter fight.
Hold on. He didn't ask me. I asked him a question. I said, do you like Canelo?
I appreciate all of them, man. I was only playing. Ain't no dislike with me about no fighter. I appreciate all of them. To be honest with you, I
Yeah, me
do.
too.
I do.
Yeah.
But like I said, I don't play with death. I take that very, very serious. You don't tell no other fighter that you're gonna kill him. Nah, you just don't do that.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'll see. We'll have another episode next week where we're gonna, kind of like look forward and have an in-depth preview of Crawford versus Porter. Like I said, that's the fight that I've been looking forward to over the second half of the year after it's been announced. So uh, it's coming, man. The countdown is getting close, man. It's getting close. So definitely we're ready for that. Like I say at the end of every show, folks, Corner Boxing is hitting. I can hit, not to send and trade. On that note, folks, I'm out. Have a good evening, everybody.